A very good morning to all of you. First and foremost, if the audio and video is fine, please let me know about this. Great, wonderful. So, today, as you know, we are in our last session for science and technology. So, here in this session, there are two things that we'll do. First, I'll discuss with you the questions that came in this year's prelims paper, prelims 2023. And meanwhile, any doubt that you have regarding anything related to science and technology, or even if you have a doubt related to your general strategy, you can ask those questions. We'll take all these questions one by one. So, whatever you have, you can keep posting your doubts, whether it is related to any chapter that we discussed or anything that is outside those chapters as well. Anything that you want to ask, you can. And that is what we are going to do in this session. So, first to start with, let's have a look at the questions that came in prelims 2023 from the perspective of science and technology. The idea is not only to know the answers to this question, but the idea also is to understand the context, understand why certain questions have been asked, and in general also what are the reasons why questions in general they would ask in your paper. So let's do this. And do you want the poll also for this, because many of these questions could also be new for you? Do you want the poll? Yes, okay, fine. So let's do that. One by one, I'll show you the questions, you mark your answers, and then we shall have a discussion on it as well. All right. So, the first question. This is the first question that was asked. Please read the question. So, I'm launching the poll for you. Please mark your answers. Hmm. So, 53% of you have marked C, 38% B, 8% A, and 2% D. So, basically, in all these questions, whenever you have these questions, this can I would consider this to be a moderate level question. I would have considered this as a difficult level question if they had asked you examples of these bacteria, then or examples of these microorganisms, then it would have been a very difficult question to answer. But why I am saying that this is a medium level question, medium difficulty level question, is mainly because of this term. When it comes to microorganisms, you might know this, that microorganisms can grow in variety of different environments. There are areas which are unthinkable for us, but in those kind of areas also, those kind of environments as well, we see that microorganisms, some kind of microorganisms might be able to thrive and survive. So that's why when it comes to various different types of microorganisms, you can assume that whatever kind of environment it is, however extreme the environment is, there would be some kind of microorganisms that will definitely grow in these kind of scenarios. So that is similar, that is what we see here. So for example, let's say when it comes to above the boiling point of water, meaning above 100 degrees Celsius, now there are microorganisms that have been found even to live on vents which are volcanoes near volcanoes. So imagine the kind of temperature where they are able to survive. So that's why you should know that these kind of uh, microorganisms can survive here. So that's why saying that they won't survive is, you need to have an example or need to have a reason that why they wouldn't be able to survive there. Otherwise, in most of the environments, they will be able to survive. So that's why we see that whether it is above the boiling of point of water, whether it is below 0 degrees Celsius, both the cases they will definitely be able to survive. And the third one is microorganisms growing in the acidic environment with pH below 3. Now this is a very simple statement. Why? Because below pH 3 is an environment that can sometimes develop in our stomach itself. In our stomach itself, we have hydrochloric acid, and because of this hydrochloric acid, we have a very low pH in our stomach. And there are these bacteria, there are these microorganisms that survive there, that are there or present there already, which also help us in one way or the other in various different activities. So that's why, even forget about external environment, even inside of our body we see that there are microorganisms that can survive. So the key word here, even if you don't know what the answer is, the key word here is some. If it was all, if it was none, if it was anything very extreme, then in that case we would have to think twice or thrice before marking something. But when there is some or these kind of moderate words, you can more or less assume that the answer is right. I mean, the statement is correct, unless there is an example, unless there is an extreme case that you know of where these kind of exceptions exist. So that's why, because of this one word sum, I would simply mark all the three. And we have multiple different bacteria. I mean, if I just go by examples, there are more than 15-20 types of just bacteria that I know of which can survive in these kind of scenarios. So they will be able to survive very easily. Look at this question. This is question number 2. Please read the question. Today we will cover some topics, only doubts will be cleared. No, there is no topic as such for today. It's only the prelims 2023 paper and whatever doubts you might have. So I already see that some of you have posted the doubts. Let's cover all these questions and then we shall come back to those doubts. So I'm launching the poll. So here 51% of you have marked C, for 33% B, 13% A, and 3% D. Now this question, the context for this question is current affairs. This is a purely current affairs based question, and a question that was expected. I mean, this question has come in the context of green hydrogen, because the government of India announced the green hydrogen mission and how we are looking at 2030 for implementing green hydrogen in various different aspects, in various different industries. So in that context this question has come. And if you see, this is something that this is directly picked from PIB. In PIB, where they had mentioned what all they want to do, where all these methods will be used, they had mentioned that they will be using it in fertilizers, in refining, in bulk chemicals, and in iron and steel industry. This image is taken directly from PIB article, where first it was mentioned about the green hydrogen mission. So that's why if you look at this, fertilizers, oil refineries, steel plants, all the three have been mentioned here, correct? So directly taken from here, because it was mainly about the heavy industries. It was mainly about the heavy industries, that in all these heavy industries where a lot of carbon dioxide is used in the industrial processes, these are areas where we'll try to use green hydrogen as a source of energy. So that's why it will help, it will have a significant role in the decarbonization of all these industries. So that is the context in which the question has been asked. So correct answer here will be all the three. So that's why this is what we see for this question. Then look at the next question. Wolbachia method is sometimes talked about with reference to which of the following? Four options given. Please read the question. Please mark your answer. Hmm. So 47% of you have marked A, 13% B and C, and 27% D. Now, this Wolbachia method, this actually has been in news for quite some time now. I mean, it's not a new current affairs. This is something that has been in the news for almost, I mean, if you look at the last 5 years of newspapers, you'll find that every year there is one or two mentions of Wolbachia method. So, Wolbachia method, if you see this, new bacteria to take on dengue and Zika. So, Wolbachia bacteria blocks the proliferation of harmful viruses but doesn't harm the mosquitoes themselves. Now, this Wolbachia is a kind of bacteria. All right, Wolbachia is a kind of bacteria, and this is a bacteria which is naturally found in more than 60% of insects. More than 60% of insects, they naturally have this particular bacteria. And now this bacteria, wherever you have this bacteria stops the multiplication of virus inside the body of insects, that it does not let the virus multiply, it does not let the virus grow in numbers. So that's why it will restrict the virus. And if at all this bacteria is present inside the insect, then this insect will not be able to spread any kind of viral disease. All right, any kind of viral disease. And both this dengue and Zika, and even chikungunya for that matter, in all these cases what we see is that mosquitoes are the ones that spread it. Aedes aegypti mosquito, to be exact, in case of dengue, etc., we see that that's the mosquito that spreads it. Now, what we do is that we inject this bacteria inside mosquito, and once mosquitoes have this, they ultimately, what will happen is that this bacteria, once it is there inside the mosquito, it will not let the Zika virus or the dengue virus to spread from there on. So that's why the spread of this virus will be stopped. So we have seen that many states in India have tried this. Last year it was significantly in the news because of the fact that we, for the first time, we saw that the vector control research center that we have in India, vector control research center that we have in India, they had submitted their findings on the Wolbachia method to the Indian Council of Medical Research. All right, they had submitted their findings to the Indian Council of Medical Research, and that is the reason why last year again it was in the news. So it's not that it was in the news for the first time last year. As I told you, if you look at last 6 years of newspapers, you'll find that it has been constantly in the news. So if you look at option number A, controlling the viral diseases spread by mosquitoes, this is what the Wolbachia method will be used against. Moving on, look at the next question. aerial metagenomics best refers to which of the following situations? I'm launching the poll for you. All right, so 31% of you have marked A, 29% B, 19% C, and 21% D. Now, if you look at the words, this I would say that this is not an easy question to answer, because first and foremost, it's difficult to even know where the questions would have come from. There is a slight context in which the question can be seen, that why exactly the question would have come, and I believe that this is one of those articles that might help somebody answer such a question. Otherwise, it's not an easy question to solve. So, that's why. Uh, when it comes to this question, it will not be an easy question to answer, but still we'll try to find out what the answer should be from the context of what the words are. So first and foremost, the context: the oldest DNA reveals life in Greenland 2 million years ago. This was something that was in the news, and in December 2022 this was in the news. And the researchers were able to get genetic information out of small damaged bits of DNA. So now, uh, when it comes to, let's say, the genetic information, they had collected the genetic information from the soil of these areas, or the soil which was beneath the layers of ice. They had collected the soil from there, and from there they had tried to extract some DNA. So in this manner, we see that there are ways in which these kind of DNA can be extracted from the environment, whether it is from the soil, whether from water, whether from air. This is how the DNA can be collected. Now, here, if you look at the words, first word is aerial. Aerial. So aerial means something related to air, correct? Then you have meta, and then you have genomics. So now genomics. What is genomics? Genomics, in a manner, you can say that it is related to the study of genes, correct? It is related to the study of genes. Now, when it comes to when you are studying the genetic material of an organism, you will say that it is genomics, correct? So now, when we talk about, let's say, uh, meta. Meta is a word that actually, I think it has a Greek origin, and it comes from a Greek origin where, for example, you talk about something that is beyond the basics of the subject. For example, when we say metaphysics, so metaphysics is something that goes a bit beyond what actual physics or the basic concepts of physics are. So in that sense, we talk about it, that something that is beyond the basic understanding of something, that has a critical or an abstract understanding of that particular subject. So this is how meta can be understood. Now look at the options that we have. First is collecting DNA samples from air in a habitat at one go. Okay, fine, we have air here. Second is understanding the genetic makeup of an avian species of a habitat. Now, very difficult to even strike out the second option also, just looking at the words. Using airborne devices to collect the blood samples from moving animals. Now, this should not be correct because we are talking about just moving animals and devices. So, in the context of the words that we have, should not be correct. Sending drones in inaccessible areas to collect plant and animal samples from land and water bodies. We are talking about aerial. So, that's why C and D should not be correct. I'm just trying to help you how you can arrive at answers even if you don't know what this answer is. So out of these two, if we have to talk about, we are talking about collecting DNA samples from air in a habitat, whereas we are in the second one, we are just talking about the genetic makeup of avian species. So because we are saying metagenomics means that it is going beyond the genomics. It is going beyond just the basic studies of genetics of any given individual organism. So that's why from that perspective, if we see, B is closer to just being about the genomics and not metagenomics. So that's why the correct answer actually here is A. When we collect DNA samples from air in a given habitat at one go, we say that it is aerial metagenomics. So that's why the DNA samples can be collected from air, from water, from land, from any one of these things when you are directly not collecting it from the individual. You are not collecting it from the organism. In that context, we say that it is aerial metagenomics. All right. So that's why the correct answer here is A. So this is something that was a difficult question, I would say, because the context also, it's very difficult to, you might know about metagenomics from this particular article or basic understanding of this article. Otherwise, it was a difficult question. Look at this question. I'm launching the poll for you. Please mark your answers when you are done. Hmm. So 36% of you have marked A, 42% B, 5% C, and 17% D. Now, this question basically, microsatellite DNA is something that was in the news in the context of two news articles that had come. Uh, One is related to scientists have finally filled the remaining 8% of human DNA, and this was, you can say, in the context of the Human Genome Project. And then the Nobel Prize of last year's Nobel Prize was basically given for the discoveries concerning the genomes of extinct hominins and human evolution. So in these two contexts, we had something in the news called as microsatellite DNA, or even as you can call it as satellite DNA. Both the words can be used in the same context. So microsatellite or satellite DNA, this is something that was in the news. Now, when it comes to these two aspects of the DNA, these are DNA. When we say microsatellite DNA basically are the short repeats of DNA that is found all throughout the genome of an individual, whether any human or any other animal. From that perspective, we see that they actually are they are found in the entire body, and these are short repeats that can be found here and there. Now these are the ones which also have been seen to be found in evolutionary relationships, that let's say one generation has these satellite DNA, the same satellite DNA also gets replicated here and there, and that's why they will be replicated in the next generation and the next generation and the next generation as well. So that's why it helps us in establishing the evolutionary relationship between the various generations. And that's the context in which we see that in the context of the Nobel Prize of last year, this concept of satellite DNA or microsatellite DNA was in the news. And then again, it came in the news this year when, in the context of the Genome Project, this is something that was actually discussed. So that's why, from these two aspects, this was asked. So if you look at the options, the first one is studying the evolutionary relationships among species of fauna is something that can get the help from microsatellite DNA. So that's why this, you can say, the context was actually the Nobel Prize of 2023, sorry, 2022. So that was the context in which this question was asked. So it's a direct question that if you know, you know, if you don't know, you don't know. It's that kind of question where finding out the answer is impossible if you don't know the answer. Then this question about carbon fibers. So carbon fibers, something that we have discussed in nanotechnology in the context of carbon nanotubes. This is something related to that. Right, I'm launching the poll. These questions are far beyond to solve if you don't have any clue. It's basically, it's current affairs. So many of the current affairs questions will be like that, that if you have read, you will be able to answer them, but otherwise it becomes difficult. But I feel that there were only two questions this time which were very difficult to answer. Otherwise other questions could still be answered. All right, so 59% of you have marked A and 33% of you have marked B. Sorry, marked C, 5% B, and 3% D. So carbon fibers, when we are saying carbon fibers, the context is carbon nanotubes. All right. So carbon fibers, I had mentioned carbon fibers there also in that, in that, and if you remember that for making the fibers for making clothing material also, carbon nanotubes could be used. So this is something that we had discussed. So carbon fibers are used in the manufacture of components used in automobiles and aircrafts. We discussed about this, that we can use it in making automobiles, in aircrafts, in spacecrafts, in clothing material. In all these cases, we can make the use of carbon nanotubes. So these carbon fibers, of course, they can be used there. Carbon fibers, once used, cannot be recycled. This is wrong. They can be recycled. They can be recycled and they are recycled. If you remember, we discussed this in the context of one of the questions that were asked in 2020, that destroying carbon nanotubes is not that easy. Unless you burn it at a very high temperature, only then only then it is possible for us to destroy carbon nanotubes. Otherwise it is not. So because it is not easy to destroy them, we mostly try to recycle them as much as possible. So wherever possible, it is possible for them to be recycled because of the strength that they have, the longevity that they have. So that's why saying that they cannot be recycled is wrong. So correct answer here also will be A. Look at this question. All right, so I'll launch the poll for you if you have read the three statements. Please mark your answers. All right. So 15% of you have marked A, 34% B, 48% C, and 2% D. Accelerometer. All right. Accelerometer. So accelerometer should be related to acceleration, right? It should be related to acceleration. Now, accelerometer, today we have seen that it has become a very important aspect, very important part of a lot of electronic devices and a lot of different aspects. So, where we see that in a device, wherever there is a device that has accelerometer in it, what we see is that they would be able to measure the acceleration or the acceleration due to any kind of force, and especially it can be any kind of force. It can be force due to movement, it can be force due to gravity, it can be force due to any kind of force. All right, so that's why accelerometer, why acceleration is being talked about, because it can measure the acceleration due to any force, acceleration due to any kind of force. Now, if you look at the three statements that have been given, the first statement says detection of car crash or collision, which results in the deployment of airbags almost instantaneously. So, detection of car crash. So, when we are trying to measure acceleration or the force that is being exerted, can we not mention the change in acceleration that will happen whenever, let's say, a car crash happens? Accelerometer, if it is present in the car, it will be able to detect the change in acceleration that is happening because of the crash, that it might have a certain acceleration and it might come just drop to constant instant zero, right? So that is something that can happen. So this is correct, we see that this is being used here. Then after that, the second statement is detection of accidental free fall of a laptop towards the ground that results in the immediate turning off of the hard drive. Even this can happen because when it falls, it is very similar to the car crash situation for the laptop, that there will be an acceleration and this acceleration is due to gravity, and all of a sudden it comes to a stop, right? So there is a change in acceleration that happens in this case also, which can be measured, and accordingly steps can be taken. Third, detection of the tilt of the smartphone, which results in the rotation of display between portrait and landscape mode. So this, for example, when you rotate, I mean, if you have anything, let's say on the mobile phone, when you rotate it, you might see that the phone screen also rotates, and you would have this kind of an option where it tells you how to rotate the screen, correct? So that is something that almost all the smartphones have. So that smartphones, whatever they have, they basically is based on the accelerometer itself. So that is something where the change in motion, when you change the motion, it can detect that change, and that's why it can also detect the change that is required in the screen. So that's why all these three statements given here are correct. So this, I would say that this was a random question, that this is, there is no context to ask this question, and this perhaps is the only question in this entire set where I don't see that there is any kind of context that they have in this question. Look at this question, read the question. Please mark your answers when you are done. Right. So 33% of you have marked A, 41% B, 9% C, and 16% D. Let's look at the context of this question. So first one is Saphids. So knowing about Saphids could be a little difficult. So let's come to nebula. Nebula is something that we have discussed in the classroom. Sorry. So giant clouds of dust and gases in space is what nebula is. We know about this. So that's why one definitely is wrong and two definitely is wrong. Two of these statements are gone. Third is pulsars. So pulsars, so basically they have been interchanged. Their definitions have been interchanged. That the stars that brighten and dim periodically, they are called as Cepheids. And many a times the far away galaxies that we have, in studying those galaxies and understanding the distance of those galaxies, we see that Cepheids can actually play a very very important role. Uh, and nebula is something that we had discussed. So one and two are definitely wrongly matched. Third is pulsars. Neutron stars that are formed when massive stars run out of fuel, run out of fuel and collapse. This is correct about pulsars. And pulsars again have been in the news in the last couple of years. You'll see that that's where the context actually is current affairs. And not only once or twice, you'll see that multiple number of times they have been in the news. And that's why before the prelims examination also, I had covered it in this year's prelims, in last year's prelims discussions also. I had covered this particular topic as well. So a pulsar, because of the news, because of it being constantly in the news, because of a lot of discoveries that are related to them, that's why we see that they have been in the news. Then this is a direct question that was asked: which of the following countries has its own navigation system? Hmm. So 61% of you have marked D, which is the correct answer. Now see, out of these four countries, first and foremost, just think of which of the countries have the most advanced space technology among the four. Because when it comes to this country, that is Japan, we often talk about Japan in context of all the advancements that are happening right now in the world. You'll see that they have been working on the most advanced of space technology research, that whether it is about uh, uh, the the space debris we discussed in case of space debris, also about Japan. We discussed about Japan in terms of even space elevators. So they have a well working and one of the best uh, space technologies, or best hands in space technology in the world. And that's where the navigation system also, the country which has its own navigation system is Japan. And just remember that there are very few countries in the world that have their own navigation system. India has it, China has it, Japan has it, Russia has it, European Union has it, US has it, and France has a separate one. So that's why these are the only countries which have their own navigation, satellite navigation system. Others do not. All right, others do not. So Japan basically has its own, which is called as quasi zenith. All right. So then, apart from that, there is Galileo, there is Beidou, there is the Russian one. I just forgot the name. Then you have the GPS. So you have all these which have their. These are the countries which have their own GPS system. All right. So you have GLONASS from Russia. So there are all these which you have. Look at this question. A very simple, direct question that has been asked. The context, basically, you can say in a manner, is Agni 5 missiles that we had uh, test fired last year. I'm launching the poll. Please mark your answers. Here we should have had more correct answers. This is directly from what we have already discussed in the classroom. So 20% of you marked A, 19% B, 26% C, and 35% D. So 35% of you are correct here. First is ballistic missiles are jet propelled at subsonic speeds throughout their flights, while cruise missiles are rocket powered only in the initial phase of the flight. First of all, ballistic missiles, can they be subsonic in speed? We discussed that ballistic missiles you just fire and forget, and you can have very very high speeds in case of ballistic missiles. So that's why they are strategic missiles as well, that they can cover very long distances, they can go very long distances, they can be nuclear powered, they can be highly destructive, they have very fast speed. We discussed all these things. So that's why they would not be subsonic, they would mostly be supersonic. And cruise missile, it is saying that it is rocket powered only in the initial phase. No, we discussed that cruise missiles are like airplanes, right? This is what we discussed, that cruise missiles are like airplanes, you can just maneuver them around, you can control their flight path throughout their flight. So that's why this is a wrong statement. Then second one is Agni 5 is a medium range. How can it be medium range? We discussed about the fact that india is saying that it is a 5000 kilometers or a 5500 kilometers uh, range missile. China is claiming that it is 8000-kilometer missile. It can't be medium range, right? This is also something that we had discussed. So the context was this, that in December we had test fired Agni 5 ballistic missiles with a range of 5000 kilometers. So that's why, that was the context in which this question was asked. So this was an easy question to answer. I expected more correct answers in this. This is also wrong. So that's why the correct answer will be neither one nor two. Look at this question. With reference to green hydrogen, consider the following statements can be used directly as a fuel for internal combustion engine. So just read the three statements, and then I'll let me start the poll also for you. And again, green hydrogen. So green hydrogen was an important topic for this year's exam, and we see that there are two questions that they actually asked in your paper. Hmm. So 63% of you have marked C, which is the correct answer. So look at the statements. First is it can be used directly as a fuel for internal combustion. Yes, in the internal combustion engines, we can make the use of green hydrogen, and it becomes very clean fuel for us if we use it in the IC engines. So because the byproduct here will be water and nothing else. So that's wonderful to use. It can be blended with natural gas and can be used as a fuel for heat or power generation. We can do that. And if you remember, we discussed about something called as HCNG, right? We had discussed about HCNG, where we are saying that CNG is being mixed with hydrogen. So CNG is what? Natural gas, compressed natural gas. So yes, we can combine the two. It can be used in the hydrogen fuel cell to run the vehicles. Yes, we can do that. We can make fuel cells out of hydrogen as well, and hence we can make its use in various different purposes, including to run the vehicles. So all the given three statements here are correct. And then the last question, again a very easy question, something that we have discussed in our energy chapter. Please read the question, and then I'll launch the poll after that, because this has taken up the entire space of uh, this slide. So for some of you, it might get blocked if I launch the poll directly now. Let me know when you have read the question, and then I'll launch the poll. Done? So many of you are done, you're saying? Okay. So I'm launching the poll now. Hmm. So 50% of you have marked C, which is the right answer. Hmm. A and B should never have been marked, but let's discuss this. India, despite having uranium deposits, depends on coal for most of its electricity production. This is correct, right? This is absolutely correct. That most of our energy requirements, still we see that almost 55 to 60% of our electricity requirements are being fulfilled by coal, correct? And we are trying to uh, decrease our dependency on coal as much as possible. We have a target that by 2030 more than 50% of our energy requirements should come from renewable energy sources, and we should be able to decrease our coal dependence. So statement number one is definitely correct. Second statement, uranium enriched to the extent of at least 60%. At least 60% is required for production of electricity. No, what we discussed is that enrichment should never go beyond 3 to 5%. We discussed this, if you remember, in enrichment of uranium, we discussed that we cannot go beyond 3 to 5%. If we go beyond 3 to 5%, we are making an atom bomb, not producing electricity. So that's why extent of at least 60% would be dangerous. It is proliferation, weaponization of uranium. So that's why this is wrong. So that's why the correct answer will be statement 1 is correct, statement 2 is incorrect. So C is the correct answer. So let me look at the leaderboard now. So this is the leaderboard, and two of you, Ashish and Trupti, you have answered all the questions correctly. And congratulations to Kunal, Kirthana, and Dinesh as well. You have all just missed one question. Otherwise, you have marked all the answers correctly. That's wonderful. I'm showing the rest of the leaderboard as well. And for those of you who have done 10 out of 12 questions, you are not far behind. You have done a wonderful job. Not to worry. All right. So this is the leaderboard. I hope that you've all seen it. So for those of you who have rank 1, I'll send my address. Please send me sweets for this victory. All right. So overall, looking at the question paper, what I'll tell you, uh, see, 2023 paper was probably the worst paper that I've seen in a while. I don't remember seeing such a paper. I'm not talking about in the context of science and technology only. I'm talking about the overall paper. Overall paper 2023 paper was perhaps the most difficult paper that I remember in last, at least last 10-12 years. So I wouldn't say that by any stretch of imagination this was an easy paper at all. We are expecting that the cutoff will be very low this time. Cutoff should not go beyond 40-42%, meaning that between 80 to 85 maximum, the cutoff should be there. And even below this is also possible that the cutoff could even go below this, because eliminations could not happen easily this time. There was new kind of questions that was asked, and many other subjects had very difficult question. Um, in the context of science and technology, out of the 12 questions that we have seen, there were a couple of questions which I would say were very difficult questions to answer, where there was no context to why a certain question was asked. For example, a question on accelerometer, there was no context to that question. So the most dangerous questions are the ones which do not have a context. Whenever it is based on, let's say, uh, the static areas, as some of the questions are based on the static areas that we discussed, some of the areas are completely based on the basic current affairs, so they are also answerable. But there are some which were based on hidden current affairs. For example, aerial metagenomics was a hidden current affairs question, so that becomes a difficult question because of that. And one question being on accelerometer can be a difficult question to answer, unless you take the context. Okay, it is related to acceleration, so then you start thinking of whether all these statements are somewhat related to any change in acceleration or not. So if you try to connect the dots, you probably will be able to get to the answer. But as I told you, that the most dangerous questions for me always would be where there is no context for them to ask that question. So there are a couple of questions like that. Otherwise, all the other questions are solvable. I'll If I go back to all the questions that we discussed. See, first question basically is a very vague question, and it's completely based on the number of questions that you practice. You'll always see that these kind of statements are always correct. Otherwise, this is a context-less question. This is a purely current affairs question. This is something that I had discussed in the prelims sessions that I had taken just before the examination. So there, this is a completely covered question. This is something that I had talked about in that session, and this is completely discussed there. Then Wolbachia method has been in the news for last 5-6 years, and multiple times you'll see that last year it was mentioned in the newspapers and various different newspapers. Then aerial metagenomics is something that, although it has a context in this uh, this article, but still I would say that this is a difficult question to answer, not an easy one, even if you know about this article. Then microsatellite DNA, again something that I had discussed in the prelim sessions. So in the context of these two news articles, I had discussed what is satellite DNA. So microsatellite and satellite, they have the same context. Then this is something that we have discussed in our classes, that where all carbon nanotubes can be used, and carbon fibers, basically fibers made out of carbon nanotubes. So that's why this is also a doable question. Then this is something which, as I said, that does not have any context, so this can be a difficult question to answer. This again, nebula we have discussed in the classroom, pulsars I had discussed in the current affairs. So from these two, this answer, you can get to the answer if you know about these two. Safets hasn't been discussed anywhere, and it is not something that was even in the news as such. So that's why the context, you can still very easily solve the question, because one statement, one has been discussed in the class, one was discussed in current affairs. Then after that, quasi zenith multiple times has been in the news, because in the context of the navigation systems last year, again in the context of current affairs, this is something that was discussed multiple number of times. Then ballistic missiles and Agni 5, again something that I have discussed in the classroom also, and something that I had discussed separately in the current affairs as well. So this is a purely current affairs based question, I mean a mix of current affairs and static areas, and both of these things has been covered already. And then in the context of green hydrogen, again this is something that has been discussed in the current affairs, the current affairs session that I had taken before the prelims. This is a question that I had discussed there, and this is something that I had discussed with you in the classroom. So if you see, out of all these questions that have been asked, it if I take away two questions, one being the question based on uh, aerial metagenomics, and one question based on accelerometer. If these two questions you take away, rest 10 of the questions could be answered only from the sessions that I have taken, some from the classroom sessions, some from the current affairs sessions. So that's why, although this entire paper was a very, very difficult paper to answer, but still I would say that in the context of science and technology, thankfully it was not that difficult a paper, just because the things still came from areas that are answerable. All right. So that's why current affairs can become very, very important, and that is what I have been telling you in this entire session as well, that whatever we are doing in the classroom, complete all this, plus keep adding current affairs to it from the sources that we are anyway giving you, with the help of the webinars that are happening twice a week, with the help of, if not, then the daily Hindu analysis that we are doing. Even let's say these are, if not possible for you, then the monthly magazines that are being given to you, at least one of these sources. Monthly magazine, although I would say personally should be the last source that you go to, you have to try to be as regular with current affairs as possible, not only in the context of science and technology, in the context of the entire paper, as regular as possible. If for some reason you are not able to become regular, then only go to the monthly magazines. And lastly, I will take a session towards the end of uh, uh, your sessions in the month of April and May. But very frankly, I'm telling you, this time it did happen that almost all the current affairs that came, it came from the sessions that I had taken. But I can't guarantee that it did not happen last year. All right, it did not happen in 2022. It Some of those questions had come, not all questions. This time almost all questions came from the current affairs sessions that I had taken. But I can't guarantee you that, because just understand this, that out of 100 topics that would have come in the entire year, I would have just chosen some 20, 30 odd topics which I believed could be the most important. And my good luck, that what I feel was important was also what UPSC felt important. But this luck will always not match. All right, I'm being very frank. That's why I don't want you to think that, okay, fine, there will be a session towards the end and we'll just attend that session and my current affairs will be done. No, I am very frankly telling you, I can't guarantee that. I can't guarantee that. So that's why you will have to be regular with your current affairs as much as possible, through the newspapers or through the sessions that we are conducting daily and weekly, if not the monthly magazines. And if nothing is being done, and if you have not studied the entire year, then lastly you have only one option, that is the last prelim sessions that will take. But but please make sure that you are as regular with current affairs as possible, and you cannot be dependent on those crash course kind of sessions that rarely help. They don't always help. So I'm just being very frank here. I don't just want you to depend on those kind of sessions towards the end, right? So let's begin with your doubts, whatever you have, whatever you want to ask, and one by one I'll take up all the questions that you have here. So, Alina, you have a question. How do we place satellites in GTO? So, GTO meaning the geosynchronous transfer orbits. So, now in case of geosynchronous transfer orbits, the placing of the satellite will be based on the simple physics of launching the satellite. So, basically, we know that we have to go to a certain distance. So, to reach that certain distance, we have to uh, provide an initial thrust, an initial force to this particular satellite, so that this satellite reaches the required location. Now, for this, what we need is, what we need is, let's say we are starting from the Earth and we are going to, let's say this is the GTO point. So now we know that our distance to be covered is this much, correct? And at this distance, we should be able to stabilize. We should be able to stabilize the satellite, so that from here on another thrust can be provided to the satellite, so that it can go to its required location, correct? So this is what is required, that from GTO it should be able to reach the GSO or the GTO, sorry, GU, right? So for this, first it has to reach here. To reach here, the forces that you have on the satellite at this particular point, they should be balanced. So what are these forces? One is the force of gravity. One is the force of gravity, and it should be equal to, or it should be stabilized by, the circular motion of the satellite. And in the context of physics, we basically say that the angular momentum that you have, that should be conserved at this particular point. So then only you will be able to launch the satellite to GTO. So you have another question. What does debris avoidance maneuvers? So debris avoidance maneuvers is something where we are trying to understand how to solve the problem of space debris. One of the solutions that we are working on is this particular mechanism, and through this mechanism, the bigger chunks of debris is what we are trying to clear off. So with the help of some maneuvers through the satellites, or with the help of even certain missiles, we are trying to push off all these debris away from the low Earth orbit. Please tell the complete strategy how to cover the subject in brief. So, uh, see, when we are talking about science and technology, there are two parts to this subject: the static part of the subject and the dynamic part of the subject. Correct? So, in the context of the static part, in the context of the static part, all the annotated PPTs, all the annotated PPTs, they cover all your static areas. All right. So going beyond that is not required, if at all, as I had mentioned about the NCRTs. NCRTs from at least class 6 to 8th. At least this much should be done. And there are some specific topics from class 9th and 10th NCRT books that I had mentioned in the very first class. So that is enough. If you can do this much, that's enough for your static areas and nothing beyond that. Then coming to the dynamic areas, this is related to current affairs. So either the daily CNA or the Hindu analysis that we do, if you can follow this, great. If not, the weekly webinars. So one of these two, and then that should be coupled with the monthly magazines. So cover this much, and that will take care of anything that we need for this examination. This question does not fall in the environment and ecology subject. Which question are you talking about? I'm not sure. Can you, Piyush, can you tell me which question you are talking about? Today's class will go until 9:30. Depends on the number of doubts. At one go is an extreme word? Not really. It's not an extreme word. And this is basically by definition, this is what it is. Only one or two questions have been asked from what has been taught in the class. No, if you look at the last year's PPTs from my static and the dynamic areas, 9 out of those 12 questions have come from what I've discussed. And given the context that this was probably the most difficult question paper that we have seen in last 10-15 years, 9 out of 12 is a wonderful conversion ratio, I would say. What are microsatellite DNAs? So just to repeat, microsatellite DNAs are the kind of DNA which keeps on repeating all throughout the genome. So this would be a small bunch of DNA, all right, small packet of DNA, and this packet of DNA will be found here and there almost in the entire genome. And this is something that keeps on repeating from one generation to another. So that's why if we find, let's say, an X packet of DNA somewhere, and we find the same X packet, let's say, almost 10 generations from there, we know that these two DNA are connected. So these two organisms in their evolutionary journey should be connected to one another. So that is why they become very important in the context of the evolutionary relationships between organisms. What is the threshold for short, medium, and long range missiles? So generally speaking, when we are talking about short range missiles, they would be in the range of maximum 200 to 300 kilometers. Look, the problem is that there is no exact you can say demarcation between what should be long, what should be short, but largely we see this, that medium generally will be up to 1000, and long range missiles will generally be between 1000 to, you can say, up to 2000 or 2500 kilometers. Beyond that, we say that these are intercontinental. But the problem also is that intercontinental and long range missiles often are also uh, used in the same context. I mean, beyond this should be, I'll write this as directly beyond 2500. So, but many a times intercontinental missiles are also called as long range missiles. So many a times intercontinental as a word is not used, largely with something that goes beyond uh, 2000 kilometers. We generally tend to say that these are intercontinental. Otherwise they can also be called as long range missiles. Notes of the new space policy, I think they have been uploaded on the Byju's exam prep app. Please check there. Preparing for 2025, what should be my strategy to cover GS subjects, optional and current affairs? Okay. So, right now, my advice to you would be that you should keep carrying on with your optional and GS preparation. Optional preparation, because first and foremost, try to understand what your optional is. I don't want you to change your optional midway because you're starting a bit early. So it should not be the case that you are changing your optional midway. So be very sure about what optional you want to take. And if you already know, if you are 100% certain that this is what my optional subject is going to be, then start studying that optional subject. Start devoting some time to optional subject. Largely try to cover your entire GS as quickly as possible. Cover the GS as quickly as possible so that you will have time for additional reading. You'll have time for additional reading through various different materials. Plus, in the context of current affairs, you'll be able to make your entire GS preparation much more comprehensive. Current affairs, I would say, should start next year in March 2024 onwards. You should start your current affairs preparation as well. And then when you start your current affairs, you should start combining all that current affairs that you read to the subjects that you have already learned. And that should not be based only on the subject, but rather the exact topic from where that current affairs comes from. So that when you start revising just before the examination, you will have the entire context of one particular topic at one place. So that's why right now you should try that by the next year, by March, you should have at least covered the bigger areas of your syllabus, that is history, geography, polity, economy, science, and environment. These six subjects should be well covered. And after that, whatever current affairs you get, just keep adding to all these topics. Meanwhile, if you are 100% sure about your optional subject, you have chosen the optional subject, please start preparing for it. Even if you start devoting 1 hour a day from now on, that will be great. If you can do more, wonderful. Not a single question has been asked from NCRT in 2023 prelims. That's what I said, that NCRTs, whatever I'm asking everyone to read, I'm not expecting questions to come from NCRTs. It's just that if you have read this NCRT books, it makes it easier for you to learn everything else. it just makes it easier for you to come into the aspect of science and technology. Otherwise, science and technology probably among everything that you're going to learn is the most difficult subject. So because it's too technical at times, so that's why, I mean, just look at the questions also, that it makes me also helpless at times, and I have to make you learn those topics and understand those topics, because they would ask questions from there. So that's why it becomes a bit technical, becomes a bit difficult, even not only for the non-science background students, from arts or commerce background students, even for the science background students we see that it can become difficult. Because if you are from the medical side, you will find that physics and chemistry side could not be very strong for you. If you are from the engineering side, the biology side may not be that strong for you. So that's why we see that even in the science students, among the science students also, they also uh, see some difficulty in learning exactly everything that we are studying here. So that's why NCRTs, it just eases you out into this subject. So it's not that we are expecting questions to come from there. Which is the monthly magazine is good? Monthly magazines that we are providing you, that has been covering each and everything that we need. At mass level, LPG is used as cooking fuel, but it can be replaced by biogas. Yes, it can be replaced by biogas. We it can be replaced by biogas. It is already being replaced with PNG, that is compressed natural gas. So there also uh, piped natural gas, which is a form of compressed natural gas. So we already see that that's already in use everywhere approximately now in the country. And yes, of course, biogas can also be used as a cooking fuel. So in the future we might see that. I'm not able to understand the newspapers for how to read it, and when I see the Hindu CNA, the CNA, I am not able to understand how or which things to note down. So, see, um, it could happen when you are new. I totally understand that if that's happening. So, my suggestion here would be that just follow the basic notes that we are giving through these lectures. That the CNA lecture or the Hindu analysis lecture that happens every day at 10 a.m., just follow what the faculties are doing there. Whatever we are following there, whatever articles we, how exactly we are analyzing those articles, and what are the kinds of notes that we are making on in those articles, just try to follow that, so that ultimately you'll also get into the habit. The second way to do this could also be based on your understanding of the syllabus. That when you read any article, just see if there is something that relates to your syllabus, especially the main syllabus. The prelim syllabus anyway has nothing significant written there. So in the mains syllabus you will find that there are a lot of topics that have been, that has exactly written what's required in your paper. And that's why if you find the context there, if you think that okay, this is related to one of my subjects or related to one of my topics, then in that case it makes it easier. But for somebody who has just started, it may not be that easy. It might take some time before you are well versed with the syllabus and you exactly know what the topics and the chapters are. So until then, just keep on following what's happening on this daily Hindu analysis, and what's being done in the CNA, the text based CNA that we are giving, or the PIB analysis that we are giving on a daily basis. So just keep on following those notes for then, until then, and don't make your own notes until you feel that you are experienced enough that you'll be able to do it. I'm going to give my attempt in 2026. So from when I have to start covering the current affairs, see, the basic thumb rule is 15 months before your prelims examination. So 15 months before your prelims, you should start with your current affairs. Meanwhile, you can keep reading the bigger topics. Anyway, we cover the bigger topics in the classroom also. We keep giving the context from time to time. So the bigger articles you would know. So for example, let's say right now, from science and technology perspective, the biggest things are Chandrayaan 3 and Astrosat. So these are two things which are one of the biggest for coming current affairs. So that's why the bigger things you would anyway know, the smaller things you should become much more regular 15 months before the examination. Meanwhile, you should try to just complete your optional subject if you can. Read optional subjects, your optional subject as many times as you can. Until that time, you have a good amount of time to be able to do that. What strategy should I follow preparing for 2027? So I would say the same. What I said for 2026, it exactly applies for 2027 as well. That right now it should be about GS plus your optional subject, and complete your optional subject as quickly as possible. Revise it multiple number of times from multiple sources, because if you can master those 500 marks, then you have done your mains examination, uh, and you will see that you will be able to score very well. And that's what's required, that in your optional subject those 500 marks, they matter a lot. So that's why if you are an early starter, try to cover that aspect first. And current affairs, as much as far as it goes, as I told you, just 15 months before the examination you should start. We'll be taking like questions like this for 2 hours or more. You ask your questions. I told you that I'm not covering anything today. It's about a doubt session that we have. So if you have any doubt, you please ask that. No? If 2025 GS month deviate and optional should give how much month if optional is literature subject? So same, I mean, see, even if it's a literature subject, you start reading that, because good thing about the literature subject would be that it's a completely static syllabus. So that's why you don't have to look for current affairs or think of current affairs. You have a pretty static subject in front of you. Just complete that before doing anything else. Just complete that subject, so that you then, because you will have enough time even in the last 15 to 18 months, that you can cover GS and current affairs very holistically. So before that, just try that. If you know that you are taking a literature subject, just do that as quickly as possible. Is there a need to read newspaper from newspaper itself sufficient to cover the CNA, DNA, and the webinars? See, what my suggestion would be, it depends on how much time you have. If you have enough time, the best way to go about everything is that go through the daily Hindu analysis. After you have been through the Hindu analysis, just read those particular articles by yourself, on yourself. So without taking any help, after going through the analysis, so that you already know the story, you already know the context, and then you read on your own. That's the best strategy to follow. But if let's say you have paucity of time for some reason, then just follow the analysis, and then you don't have enough time to read the newspapers. Don't go blindly towards the newspapers, because then in that case, you may not understand the context, and it might take you a lot longer time to understand everything. So that's why the daily Hindu analysis first, and then from there on jump on to those articles that were covered in these sessions. I have been attending classes since last year, but now on along with my optional PSIR. But I am only just attending it, neither able to revise them later, nor the subject of GS and optional, not current affairs, just lagging revision strategy. My attempt will be in 2024, which also generates stress due to this. Please suggest something. Okay. So Aniket, so first thing, just sit for some time and re-strategize everything. First and foremost, see where you are. All right. Each and every subject, just mention all the subjects. For example, let's say polity. Where exactly do you find yourself in polity? How many chapters have you done? Have you completed it at least once, or have you attended the class? If you have, then what's your status? Do you find that subject easy or difficult? So understand each and every subject like this, first and foremost, from your perspective, that where do you stand right now. Then plus your optional subject that you're saying is your PSIR. So this optional subject is the second thing that you should think of, and just re-strategize everything. That right now we are standing in September, you are going to write the examination next year, you have almost 3 months here and almost 5 months there. So you can say that you have almost 8 months of time, and in these 8 months, what can you do? It's not about just trying to cover each and everything from here on. What can you do? How can you maximize your marks from here on? Each and every subject being the context, current affairs being the context, and your optional subject being the context. So these three areas, just put it on a paper. Just put it on a paper and think of everything that you are, where you are and where you want to be, and overall how much time you have, how much time you have on a daily basis. On that level, how much time can you give to each and every one of these subjects, and then on you should start strategizing. So yes, of course there will be stress about this, but think of the process. Just think of the process and nothing else. Just think of, in a very robotic way, I would say, in a very robotic way, just think of, okay, fine, this is what it is, this is what it needs to be, and I have to just bridge the gap between where I am and versus where I want to be. So just focus on the process and focus on what you can do, instead of thinking of how you have lost time, or how you have not been able to revise, or how you have not done enough, or you should have done that or should have done that. What's gone is gone. You can't really go back in the past and think about the mistakes that you have done. Instead of thinking of that, just think of how you can solve those mistakes, so that you don't have to commit those mistakes in the future. So that's why, just in a very robotic way, I would say, just think of uh, what you can do in the coming 8 months that you're left with. Please explain cosmic wave theory and the Big Bang nucleosynthesis. So, Big Bang nucleosynthesis, we had discussed that we talk about the abundance of hydrogen and helium, right? The abundance of hydrogen and helium that comes from the since the time of the birth of the universe. That is what we say is uh, Big Bang nucleosynthesis, and it also becomes one of the, you can say, one of the evidences that support the Big Bang theory. So that's why we see that this becomes very, very crucial in the context of understanding of the Big Bang, and also proving the Big Bang to be one of the most widely accepted theory. So that's why uh, that is what it is. Cosmic wave theory, I'm not sure what cosmic wave theory is, but if you're talking about cosmic microwave background, then in that case, cosmic microwave background is the background that we could observe through certain instruments, and this is a background of microwaves that we see far beyond in space, beyond all the celestial bodies that we can observe. Now this is said to be from the remnants of the early universe. That early universe could have been would have been very, very hot, and that's why microwaves is something that we actually can see there. Otherwise, I don't think there is anything called as cosmic wave theory. India's nuclear program. So India's nuclear program, what we know is that it's a three-stage nuclear program that we had devised, and the basic idea behind devising this plan was that we should be able to use thorium instead of uranium by the time we are in the third stage. That is what we wanted to do, and that is why this three-stage nuclear program was devised by India, where in the first stage, we'll be using pressurized heavy water reactors. And with the help of this pressurized heavy water reactors, we will produce enough of plutonium. We'll produce enough of plutonium, and this is something that will be used in the fast breeder reactors in the second stage. So, in the second stage, fast breeder reactors are used, plutonium is used, and thorium will be introduced here. Irradiation of thorium will happen. This will produce uranium 233, and this uranium 233 will be used in the third stage where we'll have advanced heavy water reactors or Indian molten salt breeder reactors. So this will basically use this, and thorium again will be used here. So a thorium 232 uranium 233 cycle will be used in the third stage. So ultimately, we want to start using thorium and completely get away from uranium, because here we are using uranium 235 as the fuel. So we want to completely get away from that. For this, we devise a plan. This is India's nuclear program. I missed again as usual. Don't worry. As long as you are improving, that's the only thing that matters. That are you doing better than what you were doing last week? What are your thoughts on upcoming 2024 prelims? Will UPSC surprise us again? I see very little scope of further surprise, because this year's paper was extraordinary. And as a surprise, what I think personally is that we should be expecting an easier question paper next year, because this year there has been a lot of backlash. There has been some protests. There have been some uh, a lot of things said against UPSC by a lot of aspirants, plus a lot of notice that the question paper has had from a lot of people, whether they belong to or don't belong to the UPSC or these services. Even many of the serving IAS and IPS officers, many of the civil servants, even they have spoken against this kind of a paper. So, as a surprise, if at all, what I'm expecting is that they'll at least have better context to the questions next year compared to what they had this year. Because this year, um, more than it being a tough paper, it was also, uh, I don't know whether I should say this, but I would say it was a pointless paper. I don't know why you would ask these kind of questions, the kind of questions that were asked. Luckily, in science, not a lot of those kind of questions were asked. In other subjects, the number and percentage of these kind of uh, unnecessary questions were a lot. So that's why I'm not sure why they would ask these questions. It looks like that you just completely forget the context for which you are asking the question. You are here to select civil servants for the country, and they should never forget that. It should, I'm not sure, and I don't know whether I should say this or not, but it looks like that somebody just wanted to show to the world that, look, I would be remembered for this 2023 paper for years to come, because people would remember that this was a tough paper. If that was the mindset, uh, I'm not sure what to say about that. But as a surprise, what I believe is that their eyes would open, and they would at least ask questions which have a good context. Ask difficult questions, but ask relevant questions. Relevance is more important. I understand when it is easy or difficult, that's fine, but at least the question should be relevant. Something that I said about 2020 science paper, where the questions were irrelevant. So it doesn't matter whether you have asked difficult or easy questions, it's about whether you have asked relevant questions or not. If we haven't followed current affairs till now, then how can we cover it from now entire CA? See, even now it's not difficult. Look at the current affairs. If you see every year, you'll find that I would very easily say that just go back to the question papers, and you'll find that 80 to 90% of the current affairs, they come from September onwards. 80 to 90% comes from September onwards. There are just 20% perhaps of the questions, current affairs based questions, that have come from before September, maybe March or April of uh, the last year. So I would still say it's not late. It's still not late if you can become regular from September onwards, and plus follow current affairs magazines of the past few months, let's say July. Even if you can start from July 2023 current affairs magazines and September onwards become regular, still you will be able to get most of the questions only from here. Please provide a brief of International Space Station. So International Space Station basically is a joint project of five space committees, space organizations, where you have NASA, you have the Canadian Space Agency, European Space Agency, the Russian Space Agency, and the Japanese Space Agency. These five, they have joined their forces and they have basically worked on this International Space Station. Now this International Space Station, it acts like, you can say, an a space environment based research facility for them. A lot of research, a lot of studies related to the space, related to the physics of space, the environment there, each and every understanding of the vacuum, the microgravity, and so on. All these kind of experiments, all these kind of research, all happens at the International Space Station. And then at the same time, it also helps to provide support to the satellites, especially the low earth orbit satellites. It can provide support to these satellites. So that also is one of the ways in which it helps there. Genome sequencing, please explain once again. Although I know that you have in the classroom, but there are few points which I haven't understood after revision. So genome sequencing. So genome sequencing, if you are specifically talking about, this is a sequencing of the genome of an organism. Now, what we have seen is that there are two ways in which it has been done. First, we did that for smaller insects and smaller organisms, which have relatively easier genome to sequence. So sequencing is where you are trying to put all the genomes according to where they are put. It's just like a big jigsaw puzzle. All right, just imagine a very big jigsaw puzzle where all the pieces of the puzzle, they are just spread over the place, and now you're trying to find how to join all these pieces of jigsaw puzzle together. So that is what is called as genome sequencing. So first we started with the smaller organisms, the easier organisms where they have lesser number of genes in their genome, so that would be easier for us. So in a manner, we started with smaller puzzles, and then we started doing the bigger genome sequencing, like the human genome, which is one of the most complex genomes that we know of. So then that complexity we kept on increasing, and that also became the context for our human genome project that was taken up in the late 1990s. We are launching the satellites with a time period. Yes, we are. After the time period, will it become debris? Yes, it would become debris then. Can I skip monthly magazines if I'm reading newspapers daily? It helps you revise. I mean, you can skip, it's not a problem, but it helps you just revise and have all those topics at one place. How deep should we delve into the current affairs, and how should we approach when we get to see something new in current affairs? So as soon as you see something new, and okay, to answer both your questions, first, how deep? I wouldn't say that you need to go very deep, just that whenever you look at any news, just see the basics, just go down to the basics of what they are trying to discuss. So for example, when we are talking about that, they have found something in Greenland, where they found evidences of life forms or animals being there almost 2 million years back. So then what is this DNA? This is called as environmental DNA. So what is environmental DNA? When we are trying to collect DNA from the environment, this entirely is something that we discuss as a part of metagenomics, where you are going beyond just the genomics of an animal. So then it becomes metagenomics. And so this is how we just go on to the basics. You'll see that a lot of questions that come, they come from the basics of that current affairs. Even in, for example, in IR, if there is international relations, if there is something in the news, you'll see that they might ask a geography based question based on that. We have seen it. If you look at the last few papers, you'll see that a lot of geography based IR questions have been asked, where the question has been asked because that region was in the news. So that's why they asked a geography based question based on that region. So many a times that happens. So it's not that you just need to go into the research level analysis of each and every article. You just need to go back to the basics, the basics of how exactly is this current affairs related to your syllabus in one way or the other, or what is, if there is a new word, then what does that word mean, a basic dictionary level meaning of that word, not to know about what exactly that is. Because metagenomics, for example, we had here, metagenomics is an entire subject. So we don't need to go into the details of that subject, we just need to know the definition. So not very deep, the basics are what's required. And same goes for any new topic as well, that as you see something new, first just the basics. Okay, I see this term, I've never seen this term, what is the meaning of this term? Just google that term up and you'll find the meaning of that term. Done. And then some of the important things that are mentioned in the newspaper or in that article, in the context of that word, try to relate all those things together. That will help you. What is Project Netra? So Project Netra is our own mission, our own project, which will help us in clearing the debris that we have. It is basically about first identifying the Indian debris, and then about uh, clearing those debris. What is the big bounce theory? Big bounce theory is where it says that the universe right now is expanding, but there will be a time when further expansion will not be possible, because gravitational force will become stronger than the other forces, and hence gravitation force will start pulling everything together, and then a contraction will again start in the universe, until the point further contraction is not possible, and again the universe will start to expand again. So universe will keep on bouncing from one state to another, from expansion to contraction, and then expansion, then contraction, and so on. This is what big bounce theory is. I read the Hindu daily but never note, so I also follow monthly magazines. I don't follow the webinars. See, uh, if you are following the daily Hindu, then even if you skip the webinars, it's fine. So as I said, that either of the two, I had written here also, that either of these two plus the monthly magazine. So this is fine. And if you're, even if you're not noting down, in one way or the other, you should have it at one place. So let's say you have just underlined it and you have kept it, or you have made notes, or you have done something that you can fall back to. Because if you can't, then in that case, whatever you have read, it doesn't take more than 5 days for you to just forget what you had studied 5 days back. So there should be some mechanism that you should follow always, so that you can come back. ARM, should we read or not? Yes, you can read it along with the lectures, it will help you in further reading. CRISPR-Cas9. So CRISPR-Cas9 basically is something that is held, it is used in recombinant DNA technology, or wherever we are doing some kind of genetic modification. So CRISPR is something that will help in identifying the required part in the DNA where we need to make the cut. If you remember, in recombinant DNA, we talked about that we'll be able to make cuts at only specific location. So identification of these specific locations can be done with the help of CRISPR. Cas9 is like a scissor. We say that Cas9 is like a molecular scissor. So that's why it just helps you in cutting those areas that have been marked by CRISPR. So CRISPR-Cas9 has been seen as, it has become, you can say, probably the most popular gene editing tool. There have been others in the past, like ZNFs have been there. ZFNs have been there. So these gene editing tools were not that easy to use. Compared to that, CRISPR-Cas9 has been seen to be very easy to use, and that's why it has become the most popular gene editing tool. Do the Lagrange points rotate with the rotation of the Earth? Not rotate, but revolve around with, along with the revolution of the Earth. So please tell us how to be motivated in low days. One of the most difficult questions to answer. See, everybody has their own process. you know what cheers you up when you are not feeling well. So it could be anything. It could be probably talking to a friend, relative, parents, or your partner, or whoever it is. It could be that. It could be nothing but, let's say, just watching a movie. It could be nothing but just maybe spending some time here and there, maybe just going out for maybe some hours. It could be anything. So everybody has some process that you know deep down that really helps you in the times or in the days when you're not feeling well, when you're feeling very low. It could be nothing else but just listening to music, listening to maybe music which is just happy music, or something that does not have anything emotional in it, or anything that has anything negative in it. It could be anything. All right. So just that everybody has their own process, everybody has their own process to help them remember what something good feels like. And also many a times what happens is that, given the fact that this is a preparation that takes time, and also for many of you there would be a lot at stake while you're preparing. I remember that my days, that there was a lot at stake while I was preparing. So it was not very easy to just leave everything and just keep preparing. So we know that there are areas like this, situations like this that might occur for everyone. So that's why in those kind of days, it's always good to take some break. Not break of weeks or months, but break for a few hours, maybe break for maybe a couple of days if required. But in that time, do something that regenerates you, something that will help you come back. And always don't forget what you are aiming for. That always should be there at the back of your mind. You can never forget what you are doing, why you are here, and what is the basic motivation that is driving you to qualify for this examination. It could be anything. It could be just about proving a point to somebody. It could be about the larger context of helping the Indian society in one way or the other. There are people, and if I tell you stories, for example, I got a call just a couple of weeks back from one of our ex students, and he is right now posted as an IPS officer in one of the districts. And he was just happy about telling me that how he has been able to bring down the total ambulance time that his district used to take. The total ambulance time, meaning the ambulance going from the hospital and bringing back the patient to the hospital, the total time it used to take in that district has now been decreased by almost 15 to 20 minutes since the time he came to that district. Small things that make him happy, that he could talk about it and he could tell those stories. So that's why, never forget the motivation for which you are here. It could be anything, whatever the motivation is, whatever is driving you, that will always help you come back. How to do answer writing in science and technology. See, something that we had discussed earlier as well. So when it comes to science and technology, just understand that when it comes to science and technology, examples become very very important. Citation of examples become very very important. So that, because it's easier to write a general answer, but when you write an answer which also has some kind of, let's say, some kind of example or some kind of data, etc., which is also associated with it, it will always help you in writing an answer that makes more sense. All right, that makes more sense. So that's why, always try that, you always are looking to include those examples as much as possible in any answer that you're writing. That's the very first thumb rule in writing any science and technology based answer. Then a lot depends on the kind of question that has been asked. So a basic introduction and basic conclusion should always be there in your mind, that this is how you are going to start, and this is how you are going to end. So this is something that should always be there in your mind, and then based on that, try to make that entire answer. But everything said and done, it's practice that matters more than anything else. Monthly magazines like Byju's magazines or other, Byju's magazines, whatever we are discussing in those monthly magazines, that should be enough for you. Biosorption. So biosorption basically is biological absorption. When you have any biological material, when you have any microorganism being used for absorption of something, all right, for absorption of any, let's say it could be uh, it could be a metal or a metal piece, it could be oil, it could be anything. So whenever you are absorbing material with the help of microorganisms or any organism for that matter, it will be called as biosorption. Bosons. Okay, what are bosons? So bosons, basically you can say that bosons are nothing but force particles. So let me just give you a basic context to the particle physics. So basically we have different types of particles, right? We discussed about electrons, protons and neutrons and so on, but all these particles, they basically are classified as two types of particles. We have force particles, we have force particles and we have matter particles. Now, matter particles are something that I'm sure that most of you are aware of. I mean, you have read about. So this is where we see that you have quarks. All right. So we have quarks that come here. And from the quarks, we discuss that hadrons and leptons basically come from here. So hadrons. And from the hadrons, we discuss that protons and neutrons basically they come from here. Protons and neutrons. All right, so this is how you have it. And then after that you also have the leptons. All right, you have the leptons, and from the leptons you will see that the formation of electrons, muons and taus, they happen from here. So this is basically the matter particles that most of us know of. And then after that there are force particles. So force particles basically are related to some kind of force. So for example, gravitons we have gravitons which are basically gravity particles. Then after that we have photons. Photons are related to electromagnetic forces. Then we have gluons. Gluons are related to weak nuclear forces. And then you also have bosons. So bosons also, there are two types of bosons, W and Z bosons. So in this manner we have all these force particles. So force particles are related to some kind of forces. uh, so bosons related to the weak nuclear force. You have gluons which are also related to largely related to the weak and the strong nuclear forces. Then you have the photons related to the electromagnetic forces, and gravitons related to gravity. So force and matter particles, and this is basically how the entire particles are in this universe. In the third stage of nuclear power plant, fuel is thorium or uranium 233. See, thorium is converted to uranium 233, and uranium 233 is used as a fuel. So you take thorium 232, you convert it to uranium 233, and you use uranium 233, because uranium 233 is not natural. You have to make it, and that is made in the second generation, in the second stage. Should we learn all the warfare of India? Not exactly, only the ones which are in the news, that's it. How genetic engineering works in BT cotton? The exact same scenario that we had discussed in recombinant DNA technology, that's the exact technique that we use. Microbial fuel cell are considered as a source of sustainable energy. Why? Because these are biological sources. These are biological sources that will always exist, and it's not that will be and we can very easily create them also. We can make them multiply also, and we can have multiple copies of them. So that's why they can be used sustainably for a very long time. Microorganisms can survive in extreme conditions, but can they grow and thrive? Can they grow and thrive as well? We see scientists retrieving ancient viruses from frozen areas, but would they really be able to grow in numbers? Is my doubt. Yeah, growing in numbers will be very, very difficult in those areas. They can survive, yes, they might form a cyst many a times and they might survive there, but at the same time, we also see that many of them are actually also able to thrive there. It's not that it's always about just they being able to survive, but we see that there are areas where they can very easily exist there and multiply also there. So it's not that they just survive in these cases. Okay, so I see that there are a lot of questions still. Uh, so should we take a small break and then come back? Because I still see that there are almost more than 20-25 odd questions that are still left to be answered. So let's take a small break. Right? Let's take a small break and let's come back then. It's 7:54 right now. Can we be back by 8:05? Let's be back by 8:05 and I'll discuss all the other questions remaining after that. Welcome back, everyone. So let's continue from where I left. How many node validations are required to execute the transaction in blockchain technology? It depends. It completely depends on wherever this blockchain is being used. So there is no fixed number. All right, there is no fixed number that there should be 10 or 100 or 1000. It depends on where blockchain is being used. So that's why it's just about the simple fact that all the participating nodes should either validate or invalidate. If anyone invalidates, it will not go further, it will not be executed. If everyone participating validates, it will be executed. Please explain satellite ballistic missile developed by ISRO and DRDO. So basically, the satellite ballistic missile, if you're talking about the mission Shakti, then in that case, it's an anti-ballistic missile program where we'll be able to target any incoming ballistic missile or even a spy satellite that is hovering over our airspace. So now we have ASAT missiles or anti-satellite missiles that can do all that, and we also have successfully tested it as well. So we that we in that we see that we have become one of the very few countries in the world which have this technology now, apart from US, China, Israel, and I think Russia. Apart from these countries, we are the only ones who have this now. Strategy for 2024, I mean, in the context of this subject, it's very simple, that we are talking about everything that's covered in the classroom plus all the current affairs, as I just mentioned half an hour back, how exactly to cover all the current affairs. I did not understand halo orbit of Lagrange point properly. Can you please discuss again? So halo point of Lagrange point, so when we are talking about the Lagrange point, so we know that you have the sun, you have the earth, and joining the two in the middle, you will have L1 being here as the Lagrange point. So that's why this is the point that comes as the halo point between the sun and the earth, which is basically being managed by the gravitational pull from both the sides. How to choose optional subject, confused in that. So choosing the optional subject, very first thing, just look at the number of subjects that you have, Madhur, that you know that there are some literature subjects that have been mentioned, plus there are some specific subjects that have been mentioned. First, look at the entire list and see if there is something that belongs to your background, belongs to your graduation or your post graduation, if there is something that you can take from there. If you find that there is nothing that you can take from there, and even if, let's say, it is related to your graduation, you're not comfortable in taking that, that also can be the case. We have seen that in many people's cases, that they do not take the optional from their background. That's completely fine. You may or may not want to take that. If that's not the case, then pull out the list of subjects where you feel that you can do it, because ultimately whichever optional subject you take, you will have to do that optional subject at the level of at least graduation, if not post graduation. So you have to be ready. It's not like GS where you have to do things at a very basic level. So that's why from that perspective, you'll have to go further into the details of the subject. So that's why you should look at the syllabus of the subjects as well. So for example, let's say there are 5 or 6 subjects that you have zeroed down, and out of these 5 6 subjects, you find that okay, just go through the syllabus of these 5 6 subjects. Also consult, if required, consult the mentors also. They will also help you in understanding what you can or you cannot choose. And then after that, zero down on a couple of options. If at all, let's say there is somebody else also preparing with you, you have a friend, you have somebody else along with you also preparing for this examination, and if, let's say, 2 or 3 people are taking the same optional, that also really helps many a times in chalking down a strategy for that particular option. So zero down on all these points, and then I would suggest personally that also talk to the mentors once, so that they can help you exactly in figuring it out for you. appearing for 2024, I have basic idea about almost all the subjects, but I don't know how much I remember. What should the strategy be? So see, the basic strategy now would be to first and foremost start closing all the subjects by revising them. Revise them, practice from them, prelims based and mains based, especially mains based. When you start writing answers, etc., you remember things a lot better. So that's why start writing answers in all the subjects that you have learned. So now it should be about, if you, let's say, have covered the basics of all the subjects, now it should be about revising them and start to close them one by one. Start closing them by reading them again, by revising your notes, by writing answers, by practicing MCQs, by adding current affairs of all these areas to your basic notes. By doing all that, you can, in this manner, you can keep on adding to your preparation now. So that is what you should keep doing going forward. I have my BSc in biotechnology. I watched some toppers' videos, and some of my senior aspirants suggest me to take anthropology or public administration as an option. See, anthropology, I can still understand that it is some, because the biological anthropology is somewhat related to biotechnology. So there is, out of four parts of anthropology, at least one part is something that you can do well. Public administration is not related to biotechnology at all. Public administration, somebody, let's say, suggesting public administration is more of a personal opinion, that somebody felt that public administration is good. Now here I should also give a context about public administration, that some seniors will also always say public administration. For example, let's say if there are people who have written the examination up till 2015, 16 and so on, public administration used to be a very easy paper. We have seen that if you especially look at 2005 to 15, you'll see that there are a lot of aspirants who qualified the paper with public administration as being their one of the options, because public administration was a very easy paper. That hasn't been the case of late, and that's why we also saw a drastic drop in the number of students who have been taking public administration. But still, I would say that it's an easy paper to take. It's not a difficult paper at all. Just that in some years, in the past few years, we have seen that the questions have been very difficult. So that's what made the qualification difficult. So now that's why I'm saying that it becomes more of a personal opinion of somebody. So anthropology is somewhat related to what you have been doing, your BSc biotechnology. But beyond that, there are other aspects of anthropology also. But overall, given the subject, it's an easy subject to take. It's not a difficult subject by any stretch of imagination. So that's why it's a good subject to take. And if you want, anthropology can be a good subject. We see that there have been a lot of people who have qualified, they come from anthropology background. So if between the two, I would say that I personally would have preferred anthropology in your context than public administration. For 2024 prelims, from what month should we keep the track of current affairs? As I discussed few uh, couple of I mean almost half an hour back, that uh, at least 12 months you should give. July onwards, if you can start, it's safe. If not, at least September onwards, you must start the current affairs. So if you can give 12 to 15 months, that's ideal, but at least 9 months of time is required. Lagrange point is one, then how many satellites can be placed there? It's one point, but it's around this point. So satellite will be revolving around this point. So it's not that it's a very small exact point. So there are, I mean, if we want, multiple satellites can be put here. Strategy for making notes, current affairs notes. So strategy for current affairs notes would be more of topic based, if you ask me. That every subject, or rather every topic that you come across in current affairs, you should always try to take them back to their origin. Take them back to the origin, that is the subject from where they belong. So that's why it should always be related to that. Always, while you are making notes of the GS subjects also, you should just keep some blank pages. Either, let's say, if it's a notebook, then at the end of every chapter, keep some blank pages. If, let's say, it's a file, then you can always insert new notes in those files whenever you want. So but always just ensure that in whatever way you make notes, or whatever you way you are compiling notes, whether it is just, let's say, the annotated ppts that you are relying on, and you don't make notes. So even in that context also, wherever the current affairs comes from, always try to attach that current affairs to your basic notes. From now onwards, do I need to start revising magazines of January right now? No, 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 no. As I told you that even if you start from July, it's fine. If you have that time, then it's okay that you can go up till March. Even January, then also is not required. I read the Hindu daily, but never note. Okay, I think I've taken this question. How intercontinental missiles tested, because 5,000 kilometers is not a less distance. If we fire, it will definitely go to other countries. Yes, when the testing is done, the testing is never done in a manner that we are launching it for 5,000 kilometers. Testing will be done in the test facilities, and there are certain check marks that we have, or check boxes that we have, and that should be cleared. So whether, for example, the initial flight path, and whether we have been able to fire it up for a certain number of seconds or not, because if it is happening, it means that the initial firing is working fine, and it should be able to take that trajectory. And then after that, the final firing will completely depend on the initial testing that has happened. So testing will be done in a very small range. It will not be done for a very long range. Testing will be done in a very small range, but there are certain characters, certain technologies that we test there, because if all these technologies are working fine, whenever we want to launch the satellite, it will be launched to the required location. Recently, scientists observed class of black holes. So please explain the importance and types of. If you can, Shanavas, if you could just share the link of the context of this article. I mean, just share it on the email. I'll answer you on the email itself, because I'm not sure about the context of this. Can the nucleic acid vaccines cause permanent changes in the DNA, and the protective mechanism created by it can be transferred over the generations, as opposed to the whole pathogen and subunit vaccines? No. See, the transfer of anything, or let's say any nucleic acid DNA also, uh, the transfer from generation to generation can only happen if that has become a part of uh, the reproductive genes, or the reproductive cells. Then only what happens is that they combine during fertilization also, and then they are transferred to the next generation. Otherwise they remain somatic. All right, otherwise they remain somatic, and they would remain only in that person, and they will not become permanent at all. Nucleic acid only means that that nucleic acid is being sent, an mRNA is being sent, which is an antigen. Remember that although it's a nucleic acid, although it is a genetic material, but it's not the human genetic material. All right, it's not the genetic material that is a part of your body. It's the genetic material of the organism, the microorganism, the virus or the bacteria. So that's why it will not be transferred to the next generation until it is a part of the germ line. If at all it's a part of the germ line, or it's a part of the germ line editing at all, then only it is possible that it will be transmitted to the next generation. Otherwise it will not be transmitted to the next generation. Some of you have asked the same question almost 10 times. That also confuses me. You ask your question once and I'll take all your questions. I did not understand cryptocurrency topic. Can you tell me what it is and what to do with this topic? So cryptocurrency is a kind of currency, a kind of a digital currency that uses some kind of cryptography. In most of the cases, this cryptography or this kind of encryption is blockchain. All right, so most of these cryptocurrencies, they are blockchain based. Not all the cryptocurrencies are blockchain based, but many of them, many of the popular ones, they are blockchain based. So they are using blockchain technology for their encryption. So it's a digital currency using blockchain most of the times for encryption. What is meant by flat universe? So flat universe, basically what we see is that the entire universe, if we look at the entire structure of the universe, we see that it's more or less two dimensional. So it's not that, for example, let's say the sun is here, earth is revolving like this, the mars is revolving from here, jupiter is revolving from here. That doesn't happen. We see that they all are placed in this one plane. That's why we say that the entire universe is flat. And that basically happens because of the law of conservation of angular momentum. All right, it happens because of conservation of angular momentum, that this entire universe is seen as a two-dimensional space. I started in October 2022, but I am still not able to write answers. Have you tried practicing? And if you have written any answers, can you please send it to me so that I can also analyze it once I can tell you something about it? If all the things that have a mass have gravitational force, then do humans and animal bodies also have it? But we cannot feel it because the gravitational force of the earth overpowers it. It's not that. See, you cannot feel your own gravitational force. You can feel the pull of the gravitational force from somebody else. So for example, let's say there is a camera right in front of me. So there is a gravitational force that this camera is exerting on me, and there is one gravitational force that I am exerting on this particular camera. So now what happens is that gravitational force is being exerted by both of these bodies. But then the question is, why am I not being pulled by it? Why is it not being pulled by me? The reason is that our gravitational forces are very weak. Because let's say I am around 75 kg. Yes, I need to lose some weight. I am around 75 kg. This camera is around, let's say, 2 or 3 kg. And then the gravitational force between these two bodies, if you calculate, will be very, very low. G m1 m2 by r squared here will be very, very low. So in the almost, you can say, 10 to the power of minus 10 uh, newtons. So it's a very small gravitational force. That's why you are not feeling that pull. But because earth is very bulky, it's very massy, that's why it has a very huge gravitational force. That's why you are able to feel that gravitational force from the earth. Otherwise, just compare the mass of the earth compared to anything else that is there in the surrounding. That's why they are all very negligible in their mass as compared to the earth. And that's why you don't feel their gravitational pull, and you feel the gravitational pull of the earth. Is it possible to cover optional from now for 2025? Of course it is. Even for 2024, I would say that you have enough time that you can very easily cover the optional subject for 2024 as well. What is NFT and what is the utility of it? NFT stands for non-fungible token, and this non-fungible token is something that is related to blockchain technology, where using blockchain technology we create some unique tokens, and these unique tokens are related to something. It could be an artwork, it could be a collectible, it could be a music, it could be video, it could be your health records, it could be anything for which you create a token. You create a unique token that belongs to you. So that is called as NFT. And because it's unique in its nature, it can be used as a representative of that collectible or that record. How can we prepare for CSAT? Which book is the best? uh, you can go through the lectures that we have given you. You can go through the lectures, that should be enough. The lectures in the live classes plus the recorded classes which are available to you, even the tablet lectures that are available to you, just go through that, focus on everything that is covered there. That should be enough for you. Can I start my proper preparation from the month of October and clear the examination this year, or am I late? See, I'll be frank that it's not going to be easy to start from October and cover everything next year. Depends on how much time can you give, because now you'll have to make up for the lost time. And if you can make up for the lost time, you'll have to strategize in a manner that you think of what's important and what's not that important. What are the areas from where you definitely get questions, because every subject will have certain chapters from where questions are repeated. So for example, let's say in science and technology, space and energy are two topics where I would always expect that questions will come. So so that's why we know that this is something from where we have to expect the questions will come. So that's why that will be the case with every other subject as well, that there will be certain areas from where questions will always come. So that is what you have to basically uh, think of, and in that context you have to do everything. Discuss briefly about cyberspace virus related. See, cyberspace, generally we see that it is a virtual or electronic space where you are connected via the internet, via any kind of server or something. That is called as cyberspace. So so that's why, let's say, anything that has a computer network, any network that you are creating, whether over the internet or without the internet, through the internet, whether through an internet protocol or TCP, that is called as cyberspace. Do we need to refer to any book in order to get broader understanding? Only the NCRTs. In science and technology, only the NCRTs and nothing else. Yes, those of you have been asking, this is my email ID, rashesh.kumar@byju's.com. If you have anything that you want to ask me even after this class, you are always welcome. You can contact me here. Some of you already have written me. I have seen the emails, just that I have not been able to reply to them. Today onwards, I'll have that time that I'll be able to do that. So over the next few days, I'll cover up all the missed emails that we have here. Scanning tunneling microscope. So scanning tunneling microscope, because uh, in this case of scanning tunneling microscope, what we see is that you have a microscope that can see at the level of nanoscale, at the level of uh, nanomaterials, with the help of certain concepts of quantum mechanics. Like for example, we discussed about tunneling, that how they can break through the material and enter inside the material. So that is what is called as tunneling. And the second principle that they use is piezoelectric effect, that when they put pressure on the material, they are able to generate electricity, that is electrons, and enter inside the surface. I have the same problem like Aniket, but I have harder because maths optional. Yeah, maths optional is not meant for everyone. I understand, but yes, if you have any doubts, we do have mentors who can also help you with mathematics optional as well. So please contact them if you want to. I fear about science and technology, and sometimes I never understand simple words of science also. How to approach? It's more about understanding the words. See, in science and technology, a lot of things is just about understanding that word, and look it up from anywhere you want. In the classroom, if it has been dealt with, free, fine. If not, maybe internet, maybe Google, maybe wherever you want to go. Just go to a source, try to go to the just the basics, just try to understand the basic meaning of the words, and that helps in lot of ways. It's being very, very difficult day by day to cover what has been completed, because it's too much of burden to cover all the subjects what has been that has been completed. I can agree with that it does become difficult at times, because there are so many things that are being covered in so many subjects. But just try to uncomplicate things in your own way, in your own study plan. That, for example, let's say a certain subject that is going on, apart from that, what can you take from the previous month, what can you take from the month before that, one by one. Just it's about closing the subjects at a time. And practice here helps a lot. If you practice a lot, what happens is that it also helps you to uh, regain the knowledge of whatever probably was left behind 2 months back or 3 months back. You keep getting back to it. So a timely revision, a regular revision, and a lot of practice associated with this revision is what really is required. I'm also from previous year batch, but I'm not able to attend class, just only revise the PPT sometimes, but I face difficulty in understanding, for example, three stages of nuclear power plant. So how to cover this, or watching the lecture again? So try avoiding watching the lecture again as much as possible, because ultimately it takes a lot of time. If it can be done from the PPTs, if it can be done by the annotated PPTs, great. If it cannot be, then you need to come back, no issues with that. Then go through that particular part of the lecture and just read that again. If you have any difficulty in understanding, also contact the mentors. Try to connect with them, try to ask them about these questions, and they would also help you in understanding many of these aspects. All the launch vehicles of do they fall back to the earth? Not all of them, some of them do fall. We try to uh, make them in a manner, or design their path in a manner, that most of the times they fall in the Pacific. Sometimes they don't, they remain like the space debris. Biotechnology in industries, we discussed that there are various ways in which they can be used, whether it is about uh, using bioculture or biosorption, or whether it is about using fermentation as a process, or preservatives in various cases. So biofuels being another example. So there are all these examples of uh, white biotechnology, as we call it. How to drive more benefits from online course and various materials provided by you? It's simple. I mean, just focus on what we have given in the classroom, and maybe the additional reading material that covers most of the things that's required for you. And then additional reading, NCRTs always help. So if you can go through the NCRTs of particularly these subjects or these topics, that will add to your knowledge, and they will also sometimes cover some of the very basics of these areas, and that just helps you in gaining everything. So majorly it has to hover around your static preparation, plus keep adding the current affairs materials that we are giving, whether it is through the daily Hindu analysis, whether it is through the weekly webinars. Just choose one of these two, plus the monthly magazines. If you can do this much, it will cover each and everything that you need. How can we say that all the matter in this universe is just transformed form of context and similarity? There are evidences that we have here, and that's why we think that this must have happened. We cannot really prove it yet. It's not something which is a physics law, it is just a theory. And this is where we think that this might have come from. In tunneling microscope working, electrons go from where to where? Electrons go from the tip of this microscope to inside this material. And how are we able to generate matter's etymology via the electrons? It's about basically mapping of the area. It's just about taking the image of that area, just like how you, let's say, take a picture of one given area and you can map that area. Something similar now is being done with the help of electrons. Cadmium selenide nanoparticles. Cadmium selenide nanoparticles are found in quantum dots. Can you explain the evolution of the atmosphere? Let the geography faculty do it. Fast breeder reactors produce more plutonium and it converted thorium for the third stage. Is it right? Yes, you can say that. Fast breeder reactors will produce more plutonium, and that plutonium will be used again in the fast breeder reactors only. Meanwhile, we are introducing thorium here so that this thorium can be converted to uranium 233. This thorium can be converted to uranium 233 while getting plutonium as byproduct. When we just have seven colors in the visible light spectrum, how can we see other colors as well? Because other colors are just a combination of these primary colors. Please explain quantum technology and computer. Quantum technology basically is a technology where we are talking about physics of very small particles, the subatomic particles to be exact. And there are some basic principles on which we see that quantum mechanics is based on. That, for example, we have the particle wave duality, that these subatomic particles, they can exist both as particles and waves at the same time. Similarly, we know that it also follows superposition principle, that these particles can be found in multiple energy states, multiple energy levels at the same time, which is again very unthinkable from our perspective, but it happens at their level. So and then there is entanglement, the principle of entanglement, which says that two particles which are connected by their properties, even if they are separated by distance, they will still show that connection. So these are some of the principles on which it is based. Nuclear energy chapter is a bit tricky. How can we approach this? Yes, I agree with that it's a difficult and a technical chapter sometimes, but just go through everything that we discussed. If you uh, don't find something that you can't understand, or if there is anything, you can contact the mentors, or you can contact me on this email ID if you want. I'm not doing well with current affairs. I've not started answer writing, but I want to crack 2024. Any plan? Plan is simple. Start current affairs. You'll have to start at least from the month of September. You'll have to start. And meanwhile, even if you write a horrible answer, if you think you are going to write an horrible answer, please do write an answer. Even then, all the subjects that you have studied, all the subjects that you've completed, revise them once, and after revision, start writing answers to them. If you want, you can start with the previous year papers as well. On your tablet, there is a section where we have covered all the previous year questions in the mains examination of each and every subject. So you can go there and you can take help from there also to start writing your answer. What are the characters mentioned in 5G technology? So in 5G technology, what I had mentioned is that there are certain things on which 5G works. For example, we have OFDMA becomes one of the primary ways in which we are able to increase its efficiency. Then you have network slicing that also helps in increasing the speed, and the bandwidth allocation to each and everything is separated. The network densification, with which all the small cells are being placed so that you can get better speeds and better connectivity. So in all these cases, we see that MIMO system is also being used so that a better network and a better speed can be provided. So there are all these characters that are helping 5G. Ambika, I had seen your email. I'll discuss this with you separately over there itself. Solar flares. So solar flares, this is, as we had discussed, that these are sudden bursts of energy that can happen from the atmosphere of the sun, and these will have magnetic particles. They will carry magnetic particles and other electromagnetic particles with them, and they can interfere with the atmosphere of the sun as well, and also with the magnetic poles of the earth. Magazines from July and analysis from September are sufficient. I mean, if you have falling short in time, this should be sufficient. Which area should we focus more in science and technology for upcoming prelims? See, always space, energy, and biotechnology. These two, three areas will always be important apart from the current affairs. Is it possible to cover all the relevant articles in a daily newspaper? Because when I try to complete all the articles, I take much time as I should. Am I slow in reading, or what should be my strategy? So, in this scenario, see, and what happens is that sometimes it depends on the subject matter also of that those articles, that can also slow you down. And also, speed in reading is something that keeps on increasing as you keep on reading. Because what will happen, let's say a month or two from now, is that there will be a lot of things that you'll see are also being repeated. So there you have the context, and it makes it easier for you to read and revise. Then there are areas which are new. So that's why I said that reading should be done with the analysis that we are doing. That helps you already have that story in the mind and makes your reading faster. So first start taking help from the Daily Hindu analysis, and that will help you increase your speed. I face lots of problems in answer writing. When I start to write, that time I think I how I write, and in between I open the book and write. Please, can you tell me how to improve? So first and foremost, make a plan. Whenever you are starting to write any answer, make a plan that, okay, this is what I want to write in introduction, this is what my body should be, this is what my conclusion should be. So first spend some time, maybe give some time just in thinking this, that this is what I want. All right, and then start writing. If you are missing the facts, opening the book right now, I would say, is not a bad strategy. You are not sitting in that examination right now. So even if, let's say, you want to take the help, there is no problem in taking that help. But strategize better about each and every answer. That have the thought process very clear, that this is what I want in my answer, these are the points that I want to cover, this is the sequence in which I want to cover my points. So once you have all these points ready, it makes it easier for you to attempt that answer. And then, if you even if you need an external help, there's no problem in that. Better would be that if you could just read in advance before starting to write everything. Just read that topic in advance, even if you don't remember that topic completely. I've shifted mostly to the videos for preparation, like the live classes, webinars, and recorded content. Do you think it will affect writing capabilities if I'm reading less? More than reading less, if you are writing less, that matters a lot. Because it's about developing that language, that even if, let's say, you're not reading, you're listening to the lectures, even then you get that academic language, either through what we speak or through what's written on our ppts. So that gives you that academic language. Now if you're not writing it down, if, let's say, you're not practicing it from time to time, either through regular note making or through answer writing, then in that case it will slow down your thought process. Because then you have completely become dependent on somebody else saying those things for you, whether it is through the videos or those kind of content. So it depends on whether you do that or not. From where do we get the first neutrons from for the nuclear fission reactions? We take it from another material, we take it from uranium 235, or we can take it from any other material, and that will be used. Difference between combustion and gasification of coal. So combustion generally happens around 350 to 400 degrees Celsius. The basic combustion 300 to 400 degrees Celsius, whereas the gasification takes place at a much higher temperature at around 1200 to 1500 degrees Celsius, also at high pressure. Also at high pressure. So this is what we see in gasification, and a normal combustion will happen at lower pressure and almost 400 degrees Celsius. Wouldn't 5G create a lot of e-waste? Yes, absolutely it will. Why is government trying to implement it in rural areas with so much enthusiasm? Our needs are met by 4G network. Yes, of course, the needs are met by 4G, but 5G is much more advanced, and 5G will be able to give us much better connectivity. And there's no harm in shifting to something that is actually going to be better for the entire society compared to the technology that we are right now using and we are content with. I mean, we are fine with it. It's not that we have any problem, but just that there is a better version available. So why not move to that? How is Wolbachia bacteria introduced into the mosquitoes? This is done with the help of genetic engineering. With the help of gene editing tools, we are able to do that. But the entire process is obviously a complex procedure that I don't think is in the context of the examination is important. Can we relate the big bounce theory to the four yugas that are mentioned in the Vedas? Difficult to say that because it's more about in the Vedas it's more about the earth and how the life forms will keep on changing and evolving on the earth rather than the entire universe. Kashida, I've already taken your question. So I see that lot of questions I've already taken and they have been written again. Why do some celestial bodies have plasma around them and some don't? It's about their evolution. It's about their evolution and formation, and that completely depends on it. In the context, can you please explain how tokamak machine works? So tokamak machine is basically like, as I had told, it's like a donut or like let's say a wheel. So you have this kind of a setup where you have magnetic coil all around it like this. So you have a magnetic coil that is all around this, and the plasma is here. The plasma is in the midst of all this, and this magnetic coil will be providing that strong magnetic field, and with that we'll try to make these plasma join together. What strategy should be followed for a working professional? Time management for studies is a big concern. How to deal with it and uh, deal with it? Can you please suggest? So basically, see, for the people who are working, uh, you have to strategize better, and also because of the limited time that you have, there are things that you'll have to do being practical about your preparation. Because if you, let's say, start making a very comprehensive plan that you can't follow, then in that case nothing can be done. So there are two things. First, your current affairs. Now, for many of the people who are working, it might be possible that you can do current affairs while you travel, while you are in the office, while you take a break. So where you don't have to give that current affairs time when you are back home, whether it's early morning, whether it is late evening, it should not be that you keep on giving a lot of current affairs time to when you are back home. Instead, if it is possible to do something which is easier, because I personally believe that reading GS is more difficult than completing current affairs. And also the videos etc are easily available for you online through our BP app and our YouTube channels, so it's easy to follow wherever you want, and the material can be read easily. It does not take as much effort as a GS subject takes. So GS subject or an optional subject should be taken when you are sitting at your study table, and current affairs is something that you can do on the move as well. And we have seen a lot of students who have uh, been working and preparing. This is something that helps. Also, to utilize your week offs, maybe it's a Saturday and a Sunday, so utilizing that time is also very very important, because for all the time that you have lost during the week, you have to make it up for it in the weekend. So in this manner there are certain things that can really work for you. We say orbit is balancing of gravitation forces. In simple words, gravitation and the movement of the satellite itself, both are being balanced. Do radio waves and electromagnetic waves of electronic devices have impact on human health or animal or bird health? There are some studies that suggest that it might happen, but a lot of studies simply say that it might never happen. That radio waves, especially, may not have a big impact. Only if you are constantly only and only around radio waves, then in that case they can. Otherwise, not. When I started first class in February, those time to till now, paper I'm not fully covered, or for the daily class, I'm not completing fully every subject. My target is 2024. So, see, sort of in your context, if all the subjects are not completely covered, you have to ensure that one by one you start closing the subjects. Whatever subjects you have completed 50, 60, 70%, try to close them one by one. That's something which is required, and many of the aspirants actually fail to do that. Can we produce electricity from 60% enriched uranium? Also, we can theoretically, but it will be extremely dangerous to do that. Bose-Einstein statistics. So, in case of Bose-Einstein statistics, it was nothing but what Satyendranath Bose had first found, that how discrete energy level works, and that is something from where we understood the forces on the particles, and you can say in a manner discrete physics or particle physics. It started to stem from there. If we want to clear our basics about new topics in news, what could be the authentic source for it? The best source always is the newspaper, or PIB could be a very good source. I'm from commerce background, and sometimes things go above my head. So to properly understand it, what should I do? Always first source should be the newspaper. Try to read the article. If you understand the article, good. If there are certain aspects of the article that you don't understand, it's always good if you could just go back to the internet and search on the internet. If you can just search there, if lectures are available, great, go through the lectures. If these are completely new areas, new topics, not a part of the static syllabus, then in that case go back to the internet, just do a basic search and try to understand the meanings of the word. If you are confused in any ways, please contact the mentors whenever you want. That is why the mentorship service is available all the time, so that whatever be the requirement, you can always fall back to that. L1 point, any important for Indian space technology? Yes, of course, because we have launched Aditya L1 there. Any advantage of taking literature as an optional? See, literature, because it has a fixed syllabus. Syllabus does not change, And a lot of times we see that the same kind of questions in one way or the other keep on repeating. So somebody who has seen last 15-20 years of question papers, very easily you'll see that the next question paper also will have a mix of a lot of topics, a lot of questions from these areas. And because it has a fixed syllabus, it also helps. But it depends. For many people, literature is not an easy optional to take. Language and literature are not the same things. So you might know the language, literature of that subject might become difficult for you. What are your predictions for this year's science and technology? Right now, no predictions. Predictions only after March and April. Everyone warned me against psychology as an optional, saying it's difficult, but I'm interested. So if you are interested, go through the syllabus plus go through the previous year papers. These two things will tell you whether it's possible for you to take psychology or not. And it could be a difficult subject for somebody who is an outsider, who does not belong to the background of psychology. But it's an interesting topic to read, it's an interesting subject to read, and it's not very very difficult. It's not a technical paper or a scientific paper that it will become very difficult. So it's not a subject that can't be taken. You can take it, just that go through the syllabus and also go through the previous year papers. Sociology goes as an option, it absolutely is. I am in graduation third year from political science. I have interest in PSIR, but I also have interest in sociology. So due to small syllabus and interest in sociology, I want to take sociology as an optional. I don't want to take PSIR only because of large syllabus. So what should I do? PSIR or sociology? See, optional subject should always be taken on the in taking into account what you want to do and what you think you can do. If you think that you can take sociology and you can do sociology well, look at the question papers, look at the past papers, and see whether writing answers to these questions is doable for you or not. If you find that that can be done, why not? You take it. It's not necessary that you always take your optional only from the graduation. We'll have a lot of engineers in this classroom who would never take the engineering subject. There might be people from electrical engineering background and they will never go to electrical engineering because electrical engineering is too tough as an optional subject unless you are prepared for Indian Engineering Service or GATE examinations. So that's why it is never necessary that you always take it from your background. Yes, if you find it to be easy, why not? But if you don't, you don't have to. I'm confused between choosing optional paper between geography and sociology. Uh, I would suggest that sort of that you talk to a mentor who can really help you in going through the details of both the subjects so that you can pick one of these. Should we take printouts of PPTs or write? Don't take printouts. Try not to take printouts as much as possible. Is management a good optional? We have a lot of people who have qualified with management option. So yes, it can be taken. How does digital currency work? There are a lot of digital currency. It could be a cryptocurrency or it could be a normal digital currency that could also have its provenance. So it's a very wide open area. Either it could work through a bank or it could work through blockchain. Edge computing is when we are talking about a kind of cloud computing from where, from the central servers there are a lot of edge servers that will also be connected. So you will have a central server, and from there on there will be local servers. These will be the edge computers, a lot of edge computers like this, and the final systems, they will be connected to this. Instead of directly being connected to the central system, they will be connected to their local systems. Due to some health issues, I missed three classes, and for some classes, I've joined late. For some classes, I joined late. I watched the recorded videos, but I did not prepare any notes. I'm feeling derailed from the preparation. When I open PPTs, it's difficult to understand some of the concepts. I'm basically from Telugu medium. Please suggest. So again, depends on the subject. Each and every subject, the subjects which are easy for you, please try to close them first. The subjects where you find difficulty, go through the videos, and everything that you don't understand, you either mail it to us or you can talk to the mentors about it. They will help you with understanding of those key areas. So do that subject by subject. Can I change my sociology optional that I've purchased from Byju's to geography option? Please contact the support team for this. I'm not sure whether it can be done. I'm making notes for current affairs daily. Is it okay? Wonderful it is if you're doing it. Completed almost all the classes, but not read books. I'm aiming for 2024. Not yet started optional subject. So then do optional subject right now, because optional subject, at least one of the two papers should be completed before December. So if you have attended the lectures, then it's fine. I mean, your GS will be good enough. So lectures plus current affairs plus your optional subject is the most important thing. So that's why right now focus only on current affairs. How do we remember anything? By revising a lot, by practicing a lot, by writing a lot on your own. Biofuel alliance has just been discussed 2 3 days back, so I don't have the entire context right now until what in G20 what they had discussed. How to stay updated with the latest technology? It's always about your current affairs and the newspapers will always help you there. I've done 30 mock tests and will be appearing for 2024. How many mock tests will be sufficient? There is no number here. It depends on how well are you doing in those mock tests. If you're not doing well, revisit those mock tests if at all possible. That revisit them, see where are you going wrong, revise accordingly before you go on to the next mock test. So it's not about the quantity of the mock test, but rather about the quality at which you are taking that mock test. So that's more important for you. In the syllabus, indigenization of technology is given. So what is studied under this? So every technology that we discuss, for example, everything that ISRO is working on is indigenization of technology. Everything in defense that India is doing is indigenization of technology. So any localization of technology is indigenization. Somatic mutation in your last week's uh, daily Hindu analysis, it has been well covered there. So if at all possible for you, please go back to that lecture. It was taken by Mukesh sir just last week. So please go there in detail. It has been covered there. Public administration, if you want to more details about public administration, please uh, talk to the mentors. We have specific mentors for public administration optional. They'll be able to help you better than I'll be able to, because I never prepared with public administration. What is the main work of boson? Boson are basically, just remember this, that boson are force particles, and they basically help us understand uh, the interaction of the weak forces, that how the interaction of the weak forces happen, and they have been discovered only a decade or so back. So that's why it gave us a better understanding of this. While I'm writing answers, I am forgetting, can I look into the book for the point while writing? See, better would be if you can just revise just before writing that answer, so that you have that context. But even if you're opening the book, remember that you opened the book for a certain point, because if you forget something once, chances are very high that you forget the same point again. So that's why while practicing, there is no harm in doing that. How does activities in biotechnology benefited the field of biopharma? This is the something that we had discussed in the mains discussion that we did after biotechnology, and that how in biopharma basically it's about making new medicines and vaccines, and also making the vaccines and medicines as cheap as possible. So that is what is happening, what we have been focusing on in India as well. How companies can protect packaging logo of their products? They would have to register it, so that as a part of their trademark, so that now nobody else can use it once they start it. I have commerce background, but there has been a gap of 4 years in my study. Should I take accounts as an optional? It depends on how good you think you are with the accounts optional. Just go back to the syllabus. If you feel that just revisiting or revising will be enough for you, and you will be able to do everything, great. You can take that as an optional. What to do at revision times if feeling blank about the topic? That's okay. Just go through the entire set of lecture, or the lecture ppts, the annotated ppts, the revision notes, the additional notes. Just try to go through everything, and just try to revisit everything, and if you have any doubts, talk to the mentors and get their advice on those areas, so that all the picture can also again be clear in your mind. Any science related movies or documentaries that you would suggest to us to watch? There are so many to name that I right now I'm out of names, I would say, that there are so many of them. uh, but the BBC documentaries, I think, although they are closer to being related to the environment, they actually have the best presentation out of everything that I would have ever watched. uh, there are a lot of topical documentaries. I don't really have the name right now with me. See, management as an optional, Deepak, is a good optional, and we have seen that there are people who have taken management as an optional, also qualified with it. Depends on how good you are. I mean, just go through the previous year papers, and if you feel that those questions that have been asked there, they somehow are related to everything that you did. Because in case of management, also what happens is that there will be people who are strong with finance, there are people who are strong with HR, and there are people strong with marketing, and here you operational management. So there are all these aspects of management that is asked in the paper. So you have to be good with all these things, and that will help you. So just go through the syllabus and the previous papers to understand whether you feel you'll be able to do that or not. I'm from law background. Is UPSC difficult? No. Why would it be difficult? It's good that you are from law optional. At least one subject polity is done for you. Karthik, if you want to discuss about geography optional, please talk to the mentors. They can help you. Anthropology as an optional. I mean, I am very positive with my views on anthropology optional. We see that it's an easier and a shorter subject to complete, and we see that there are a lot of students who have qualified, so that helps. uh, I think I've covered many of the questions. My question is different from others because many of us asked what we should get subject and study, but social should not study because market for subject. I have a lot of resources and students want to purchase all of them, and lack of time. Students don't cover twice or thrice revision and they don't qualify. Yeah, so I agree with you, Rahul, that sometimes what happens is that people keep on buying a lot of things, and there will be so many suggestions and so many book recommendations and so on, that people just go on buying everything that they can get and everything that somebody is suggesting. But rather than that, what's more important is just having a set number of sources and just revising them over and over again. These classes, for example, I mean, many of the questions that will come in the prelims and mains examination, whether my class or everybody else's class, we ensure that whatever is required for the classes we cover in the class itself. And if somebody, let's say, has uh, covered in the classroom, made notes, revised those notes twice or thrice, instead of just going through all the 5 6 resources that they can think of, it will actually help them better in many of the cases. So I agree with you in this case. For me, nanotechnology and nuclear technology are different. Sorry, are difficult. So, how to tackle it? Just revise them. Just go through the recorded lecture once again if you can, and revise it once more. If you have any doubts, please either contact me or contact the mentors. I'll help you with whatever problems you have. The books issue, Abhishek, I'll again talk to the team about this if they can expedite anything here. I've gone through the static part. Don't do much about current affairs. Will it be a great harm? Yes, it will be. I'm just being frank. You can't ignore current affairs, and neither for this subject nor for any other subject. We would expect that at least 20, 30 questions will come, which are based on current affairs. At least I'm saying. And in the mains examination, they might form an even bigger part, especially in your GS paper 2 and GS paper 3. So you can't imagine qualifying this examination without current affairs. So I'm just being blunt and frank here. You can't ignore current affairs. You'll have to be as regular as possible with it. Will this class recording be available? Yes, it will be. Law is a good optional. Yes, I would say that it's a good optional. You can take it. Carl Sagan documentary on space. Yes, Carl Sagan's documentaries are wonderful. I can't afford optional classes. I want to take sociology as an optional. How to prepare? Please talk to the mentors. There are a good number of resources which are also available. Uh, there are resources, there are NIOS materials and IGNO materials, etc., which are available. There are books which are available. You can study them, and that will help you. So you can talk to the mentors. They'll help you with this. Is tomorrow environment and ecology class? Yes, it is. Please tell me what should be my strategy for preparing for 2026. uh, but I'm a housewife. So find your time, see where do you have your time. First and foremost, 2026 means that you have good time. Now, the very first thing should be focusing on your optional subject. If you know your optional subject, great. If you don't know your optional subject, choose your optional subject wisely and start devoting time to it. See where do you have that time that you can devote. So whether it is in the morning, whether it is in the afternoon, whether it is late in the evening, wherever you feel that you would have that time away from all the work that you do. If you find that time, just be regular with that time first, and then whether it is 2 hours or 3 hours or 4 hours or whatever it is, however much time you have in your hands, take that time and start preparing in that time. First, maybe with your optional subject also, while GS preparation is going on and the classes are going on. But you should focus that by the time you are at the end of 2025, sorry, 2024, you should at least be done completely with with all the aspects of your option subject with its revision if possible. Meanwhile, have still having good amount of time in your hand to prepare for your GS and the current affairs part. I think that firstly I'll complete whole syllabus, then go through the revision. Is it a good decision? Yes, I would say that it is wonderful decision. The books issue, Javid, I'll just check with the support team if they can do something about this. Please tell me what should I prepare for optional subject PSIR because of financial problem not able to purchase the course. That's okay if you. It's not necessary that you have to purchase the course. That's why I said in the previous case also, just talk to the mentors once. There are a lot of resources which are available that will help you in preparing for this optional subject as well. So do that. Why we have don't have specific mentors? The thing is that that we have a very big group of mentors that we have, but we also have a very big group of students. And if we start giving specific mentors to every student, you'll not be able to connect with them as regularly as you are connecting with them. So that by design it becomes impossible for us to do that. My subscription will be completed in December 2023, but till now I can't see tablet lectures. After end of my subscription, tablet lectures will also be deleted. Uh, if there is a problem, a technical problem, you if you have, please contact the support. But whatever be the time period of your lecture set, it will remain valid until then. I think covered almost all the questions that were given. I don't know whether I've missed something. What is CSIR Shanti Swarup Bhatnagar Awards in current affairs today? So Shanti Swarup Bhatnagar Awards will be better covered in your Science Reporter magazine of next month. So I think you can cover better there. He has been one of the pioneers in setting up of CSIR and setting up of, you can say, a basic scientific ecosystem in India. So that's why he has been a big name there, and that's why awards in research is given in his name. Next issue of Science Reporter will cover these awards well, so you can go through. I think the October issue will cover it well. I also have a problem that due to lack of revision and lack of resources reading, forgot many things of GS. Yes, that is something that happens with a lot of aspirants, so nothing problematic here. Just that uh, whenever you see this, a cycle of revision is very very important. That one subject completed, moving on to the next subject, moving on to the next subject, but also going back here, going back here, going back here is required from time to time. Otherwise it's easy to forget. And at the same time writing. You'll be surprised how easy it makes your preparation if you're writing from time to time, because writing will be difficult, but once you have done that difficult part of writing while revising, whether it is through answer writing or just let's say on a blank piece of paper, it really helps you there. Varun, if you can just post your doubt again if I missed it. How much time should we allocate for revising monthly magazines and newspapers? So newspapers basically, on a daily basis, it takes somewhere around 1.5 hours to 2 hours of time for somebody to do everything comprehensively. The monthly magazines might take a lesser amount of time, yet I would easily have to denote because it's a 30-day period that I'm looking for. So that's why what happens is, even if you let's say consider half an hour for a day's newspaper to revise, it's almost a 15-hour job to do it. So it might take through 2 or 3 days of time if you allocate that kind of time. Whenever start new subjects, I fear something that I haven't done well in the past. So that's okay. See, just understand this, that nobody can be 100% prepared for this examination. Nobody can ever be 100% prepared for this examination. So it's not even possible for you to be 100% prepared. Just focus on what's been done, what you have revised, and what you should have done. So for example, whatever I have done in the classroom, my expectation is that the student should know at least this much, because from here I'm expecting that a lot of basis for other questions in the coming papers will be formed. So that's what, if that much is completed, great. If you are losing out on something, if you are forgotten something, step back, revise it again, and then move forward. But don't be in a hurry to jump to the next subject until you are good with the previous subject. All right, you should be good with this subject, because that's why I have been mentioning this again and again. Closing the subjects, it's very important to close the subjects, that whatever subject you have started, you have completed them. It shouldn't be that you did 5 6 chapters, you're bored, you move on to the next one, then you move on to the next one. So like this, you are just opening the subjects, you're opening the chapters, but you're not closing them. So that shouldn't happen. How many reports do we need to do? See, reports also, because there are a lot of reports which are being published by a lot of organizations, government and non-government. So that's why it's not necessary that you go through each one of them, but there are certain reports that become extremely important. So those reports, especially let's say if these are reports by the government of India, then they crucially will become important. Otherwise, let's say these are private firms or private organizations, they may not matter much. But if they have a very important international presence, then they matter. I'm a working employee. I keep my study momentum good till evening 6 o'clock. But when I come back home, engaged in a movie on a YouTube, even uh, on YouTube, even I know that it is very harmful for me, I feel guilty. You'll have to actually stop that in one way or the other, or maybe keep a reward system for you, that if let's say for example, when I study for half an hour, 45 minutes or 1 hour, I'm going to watch the next 15 minutes of that movie. If I complete this particular chapter, my reward for completing this chapter is another 15 minutes of that movie. Start giving a reward for whatever you're doing. This is how your dopamine should work. What happens is, because every time you watch a movie or watch a video, it's an easy dopamine that we get, and many times that easy dopamine is not good for us. So that's why there always should be a reward mechanism attached to that dopamine, so that you will be thrilled whenever you get there, instead of just making that a habit. So just do that, just try this as a method. How to stop procrastination and losing out in the present? How to stop procrastination if I knew the answer, I would say. But yes, I understand that this is one of the very big problems for many. uh, the only thing, some of the things that help here is also to understand that this day is not coming back, especially when you are preparing for an examination. This day is not coming back. If you have lost today, you have lost today, and you cannot make it up for it tomorrow. You can't think that, okay, 3 hours lost today, I'll do 6 hours tomorrow and then I'm done. That doesn't work, because you'll not do 6 hours tomorrow, because you have developed this habit. So you'll have to break the pattern. You somehow will have to find a way to break that pattern, so that you are able to do something that will help you in strategizing better. Procrastination can have a lot of different reasons. It's not always a singular reason for somebody procrastinating on things. So that's why you have to find your reason. Why do you procrastinate? Is it because you find things difficult? Is because you find things, if you find yourself not motivated enough? There can be n number of reasons. Find that reason because of which you are procrastinating. So once you attack that reason, sometimes we see that we are able to come out of that habit. So we got to learn a lot from you during the lecture past few days. The passion. Okay, thank you very much for the compliments. 2024 prelim series on YouTube. Don't, please don't wait for that. Please be regular with your current affairs. That will happen at the end in the month of maybe April and May next year. Right? So I think I've taken almost all the questions that were there. If I'm not sure if I missed something. If I'm taking classes regularly till my exams and reading CNA, is it sufficient? Or would I also need to have to read the documentaries? No, no, no. If classes plus regular current affairs, it's enough. It's really, really enough. So don't worry about anything else. I'm studying from an open university and thus little weak in a degree. Should it be a concern for interview? No, it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be a concern. So, see, it's not that they're going to go deep into your subjects or they're going to go deep into your graduation or your postgrad. Whether you know the basics or not is what matters. What we have seen in many cases in the interviews, when somebody says that I am a graduate from, let's say, electronics engineering, so they would simply say that, do you know what semiconductors are? So if somebody says that I am an electronics engineer and does not know what a semiconductor is, then uh, how would that person justify 4 years of engineering? So they would not go into the deep details of your subject. They would remain at a very basic level. My reason for procrastination is that I take more interest in my maths optional. So after the class, I leave all the things and I go for maths whole day. I understand that. I know what happens. So basically, what is happening is that you are taking what is interesting you, and you. The problem is that the other aspects are not generating interest in you. So that will have to stop somewhere. So tomorrow onwards, just you might know already, but tomorrow onwards, environment and ecology classes are going to start. It will be taken by Mukesh sir from tomorrow onwards. So please do attend those classes as well. And as far as my classes are concerned, this is where our mutual journey ends. If you have any question for me, you can always contact me at rasesh.kumar@byju's.com. It has been a great marathon session today. I expected that this will be a 1 hour session, or maybe perhaps just a 1.5 hour session, and then I'll be free. But it took the entire 3.5 hours. That's great. So, anyway, any further questions if you have, you can always contact me here. You always can also contact the mentors and the support email IDs that we have for anything that you want to contact us for. So this is it for me. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you very much for being patient through this entire set of these technical subjects. The probably the most technical paper of everything that we are going to discuss in your entire syllabus. So that is it from my end. Thank you very much for joining the classes. Thank you.
As you know,